I looked at her phone, but I knew about 2 months earlier when she sent me a pic of herself watching Netflix in bed. I don't think she realized that the dude's face was 100% visible reflected in the laptop. After that it was a matter of me being in denial and trying to fix things. Everybody likes snacks, right? Some of us like chips,
Okay, I'm trying
others
to
like fruit
adjust it
or
so like
yogurt.
people can hear me
Well,
and like.
my wife likes croutons. Frozen croutons to be exact,
Okay,
and she tries to hide it like an alcoholic hides bottles of vodka. Where does she hide the
okay, this is
croutons? In the
good. I think.
freezer. At first I'd put them in the pantry when we get home from the grocery store, but they'd always end up in the freezer. I'd be like, Hon, what's up with the croutons in the freezer? And she'd act like she had no idea what I was talking about. Now here's the thing. I've tried them and now I'm addicted to them too. So now I openly eat cold croutons out of the freezer as a snack. And she tells me what a weirdo I am while she eats half the bag with me. No idea why she's embarrassed to admit what a genius she is for discovering such an awesome snack. BTW, the best kind is Chatham Village garlic and cheese flavor. A girl I dated a few years back had just graduated with her bachelor's, so I took her out for a night on the town. Her and our
Okay.
friends got absolutely demolished, and since this was before Uber, I volunteered to be DD. So around 2 AM she's tanked. We head out and she wants Crystal burgers. Very adamant about that. So I stop by Crystal's and order a steamer pack so I can have some too and then have leftovers. She eats somewhere around 8. I get her home, get her into her bed, and she immediately passes out. I am sitting next to her watching some TV when I smell something. I notice that she has just crap herself. She is one of those people who would be so ashamed of herself if anyone found out, so I just left. I called her the next day and told her I dropped her off, got her some water and headed home. Never mentioned her crapping herself or anything, so to this day she thinks she did it in her sleep after I left. I could have stayed and helped her clean it up, and I probably should have, but she would have cried over that and avoided me sporadically for weeks.
Hi.
I knew for a year and a half about my engagement ring and never told him until after he proposed. He was not so good at hiding.
Why is everything acting
My
so
wife
fucking
dropped my
dumb,
iPhone in a
yo?
porta potty
Why
toilet.
can't things just
Luckily
stay
it
in
has been so
place?
used there was a large pile of crap which gently held the phone above the liquid. She cleaned it off and gave it back to me. A year later I upgraded and gave her my old phone. She insisted on purchasing a new cover even though
I
I
have no
had a
idea where the
high-end
fuck to go.
OtterBox. I never understood why until one of the kids told on her. My ex made up a person and spoke to me as them. We met when we were quite young and were both pretty weird. I put it down to insecurity and wanting to look like she had cool friends. I was a little older. I never let on that I knew because it would have been super embarrassing for her, and this was literally the start of the relationship. She made up quite a few stories about this guy and I got a few emails from him.
I
She
don't
didn't
know where to
realize that
go. I
changing
don't
the
know where to
name of
go.
the
I don't know where to
account didn't
go.
actually change the address,
I forgot
which
where
was
we were
fully
going.
visible. She smokes when I'm not home. I know this because I always move the router to the window where the signal's best. When I come home the router is in a different position away from the window. I put it back without her knowing and call her out for
Come
smoking.
on.
She has no idea how I keep finding out. I'm his first girlfriend.
What are you doing?
He's 42.
You already know.
His affair. I knew
I got
for 3
that.
weeks before he left to look after his
You
allegedly
working?
sick dad, and
You
for
working
2
hard or
weeks
hardly
after
working?
before I told him I knew. He said last week he's ended it and sees what he has missed, but I know he's still sleeping and living with her whilst messaging me. Basically what he just did to
Hey,
me.
what?
I'm his wife. We were together 12 years. He just can't stop lying. He may be genuinely remorseful right now, but I can't get past his
Say anything.
deceit. My ex peed the bed. He didn't know that I knew. You're in big
Oh, I know
trouble,
you got
mister.
a sample somewhere.
I know she looks at my Reddit. She waits until I sleep to
They
steal
don't know what
my
that means,
pillows.
Axis.
He hides chocolate bars in his work bag. Bastard.
Let me get on.
She is breaking up with me tomorrow.
They don't
Said
know
she
what it
wants to
means.
talk, and it's not something we can talk about in texts.
Last
We're
time,
on
this
the
is the last
verge
time
of a
I'm
breakup
trying to
for like 2 months now. Feels bad.
T-girl can mean titty
My
girl. T-girl can
soon-to-be
mean
ex
fucking
met another
anything.
guy about a year and a half ago. She was so bad at hiding it that I thought she wanted to get caught posting romantic stuff on her Instagram when we hadn't been romantic in a long time. Confronted her, lied even with solid evidence. A few months later stuff starts disappearing from the house. Pretty obvious that she's moved
Okay,
out.
fine. I'll change
Then we
it.
started to have no money every month. and I have a pretty okay job.
Oh.
Realized she was stealing money basically by paying her bills twice a month with 3-4x the minimum payment and not paying much.
Gotta get them
Let
wool
it go
straws.
on for a bit and finally confronted her. She doesn't admit to it. I finally just pull my check from our joint account and she says she's leaving but is going to be homeless. The next day she had changed her Facebook back to her maiden name and had a picture of her and
If you
the
don't-
other guy at their new place. I don't know if this counts.
If you don't play your freaking,
I am not
I
sure
mean,
what
work on
event
your
set
freaking
up to it,
project,
but he pooped the
you
bed.
can't talk
I
to
am
me.
guessing he trusted a fart he shouldn't have, but it happened. He didn't hide it very well. He just
You have a
put the
whole
sheets in the
project to
washing
do.
machine but didn't start it, so I smelled it. He claims the dog sharted, but the boxes he attempted to hide, pretty haphazardly I might add, in the trash tell a different story. I have attempted to bring it up, but I don't want to break the illusion he has of himself being the James Bond of bed crapping. Before my ex-wife and I had first split up, I had found out she was hiding a storage unit with an entire apartment set aside in it, just in case the
I
breakup
do.
went bad. She worked graveyard, and I was
What, do you
using
just
her
not censor
laptop while
anything?
watching The Walking Dead to use the story sync. And because she uses all Apple products, her iMessage was tied to her MacBook.
Javon,
I
can you
don't
hear?
normally read her messages, but considering the amount of notifications that were chiming in, I could tell she was having a rather lengthy conversation. I opened it and started reading, and it turns out she had
Fucking
sent a picture
Voltords.
message of a fully packed storage unit to her best friend out in
Get the
South
hell out of here.
Carolina. It had furniture, appliances, essentially everything she needed to start out with an apartment on her own. I sat on that for several months, before finally bringing it up out of nowhere. We were
Whatever
literally
this is,
sitting on the
nasty.
couch one night and I just turned to her and said, "So I know about your storage unit." She about cried a brick. It was the last thing she
Can you,
ever
like,
expected to hear, but
tell me
she
what
thought she was
you're
being sneaky.
what you're
Conversation
saying?
actually
Because
went
I
quite
can't
well
tell
though,
because it's
and
like getting
we ended up
censored.
deciding that we were going to file for divorce.
You
That
said,
divorce just
what you say?
finalized the
I'm in
3rd
the
of
back, I'm in
March
the
of
back.
this year.
What the hell are you?
My wife wouldn't let me touch
I
her.
just got back to the
Well,
back. I
while we were
was
dating,
up
she
the
wouldn't let me touch her head or play with her hair.
Can you hear
For the
this
longest time
thing?
she avoided it. Her mom asked, "Didn't I know about
A
her
little bit.
condition?" I
Okay.
said no, and she told me I may find out one day. Anyway, she, my GF wife, invited me to stay the night one night, and of course I was all about it. As we laid there, I pulled her to me and ran my fingers through her hair. She didn't fight and didn't say anything, but I could feel her scars, and how her skull had healed. I felt her tears rolling down my forearm. I told her no matter any scar, or anything else, I was never going to let her go, because I swore in that moment I would take care of her for the rest of my life. We dated about 6 months, and have been married for 10 years. Brain surgery and seizures never stopped me from being the best man and friend I can be for her. I've always been her second option. Was a prostitute and was in some adult films, and worked as an exotic dancer when young and hungry. Retired. Bought a food truck. I love the coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches. Fell in love. Doesn't think I know. Doesn't know I don't care. I'll never tell. He spent a ton of money on Bruins tickets this year. Whenever he got
Damn, nigga just be
tickets to a
dropping
match, he claimed
keys.
he
The
got
fuck?
them for free through work or down please the cost, but I know he paid for them. I don't really mind since he can spend his money how he wants, but it's funny to me that he thinks I wouldn't realize he's spending a few $100 every time he goes shopping. She flushes her tampons down the toilet, which clogs it every so often. Blames it on big turds. She fricked my boss before we knew each other, before I had been hired into the company. I'm not mad about it or anything. Everyone has a past, but she carefully dances around ever coming into my work now, and I'm careful not to bring him up. He gets off to pictures on Facebook of girls we know. We were long distance when we first started dating. The one time she came up to where I lived for 4 days, but I had to work during one of the days. When I was gone, she had to take a dump and clog the toilet. She couldn't get it to plunge and was freaking out, so she went to the kitchen and got a fork and a plastic bag and dug the turds out of the bowl and threw everything in the dumpster out back. She called her friend panicking, and the friend thought it was hilarious. Friend told me about it one night when the girl had left the room after we moved in together. I find it funny but don't want to embarrass her. Her ex is in town and she is secretly meeting him behind my back. I know this because her location is always shared with me due to her habit of forgetting where her phone is. This is in the past, but still a good one. Ended up finding out that my ex-girlfriend was cheating on me after hearing one of my parrots pick up, "Oh, God, yes," Jim in a rather scratchy sensual voice. Turns
The
out
fuck,
they'd
the
been
parrot?
freaking where I keep him while I went to work. Dumped her butt the next time I saw her and told her it was an ex of mine. Sometime into the relationship I find out I'm just the guy she's using to cheat on the other dude who she has been dating before me. It crushed me cause she was the first girl I really loved and did absolutely everything and anything for her. Kept the relationship going without letting her know and then
You heard
tipped
that?
off the other dude and confronted her and broke up with her on the same day that dude broke up. She deserved it, but I never really fully moved on. It's been years and haven't had a relationship after that. My so is a veteran and very stereotypically
Might want to move on
he
from that.
doesn't talk about his personal life
What
with
you know?
friends, and he's pretty quiet in general. This is a southern traditional dude who opens every
You say
door
he's a
for
simp?
every person. He calls every
That's the
person
biggest
older
simp
than
I've ever
him
heard.
nicer. He has a lot of friends who are also this way and they often tease any man who says nice things about their women. His friends spilled the beans though that one night right after I met him they all got crazy drunk and he told all of them I was the
Damn,
love
get
of
fucked.
his life and we
Damn,
were
I was about to ask you something, but you don't even be on stuff like that.
Excuse me?
One dude he doesn't know very well.
I was about to ask you something, but you don't be on stuff like that.
He made such
What is
a
that supposed to
commotion he's
mean?
not allowed back in the bar. After
You watch One Punch Man?
No.
I realized I had asked to go to that
Yeah.
bar a couple of
It
weeks
ain't gonna make sense
he
if I
made
ask you.
some excuse about the drinks being overpriced.
I was gonna ask you if,
But if he asks me,
I was gonna ask you who you think could,
she deliberately told me she had
Could
never
beat
slept
who?
with a
like, obviously, you don't even know his name, because his real name is like Thomas, but obviously, you probably don't even know that.
I know that. Stop mansplaining.
And I then saw Facebook
Okay, I'm just saying, because the anime, you know, I already know how you do with the anime, you don't be like all that action packed and all that.
I almost hit Shinchao with a fucking thunder attack. I would have, like, healed the shit out of
What?
it. I'm talking about the
While I
game.
went one, I wouldn't even be upset too. I never even freaking asked or brought IT up.
You playing Smash?
When he's
I literally told you I was playing
he's
Pokemon.
completely honest. It was about 7
Oh, because you said a name, that sounds like a Smash name.
Pokemon?
I told him
No, I mean, which one did you just say?
Oh, I'm talking about, that's the individual Chinchou is a Pokemon.
You said Chinchou?
Yes, I think that's how you say it.
Oh, who, that's what they realized name that junk, Chinchou?
I don't know how to say it, damn.
She has no idea. Also, she has this crazy notion.
I was about to say, I was like, hold up, that's
she wants her to become sentient.
go out there.
Considering contacting a
His name is
therapist.
Chaozu.
She says she loves me, but
Like
really
shit.
she wants me to not feel lonely. At night, once I go to bed,
Let me get some
this
potions.
Gossip Girl. XOXO. Okay.
Nah, I ain't gonna hold you. I thought Xiaoxu was like the worst character ever conceived by Dragon Ball.
It was.
I'm like, bro, because when I first seen him, I was like, bro, I don't know what the fuck he's supposed to be.
That's not what
He's a clown.
So I went to his mom and told her what I knew.
And then she, yeah, I was like, what is this supposed to be? His like fucking brother or something?
They're
like,
friends.
I'm like, bro, is this motherfucker even a guy? Like, what the fuck is this thing? Is he a doll?
I'm sneaky.
I was like, bro, he was like Tien, because in the show Tien was like 6'2". Bro, the man Xiaozu came up to the middle of his shin. I'm like, bro, he will plank this nigga. What the fuck?
They're best friends.
I get they best friends, but it's like, bro, what is that, man?
He doesn't know that I know.
It was already bad enough with Krillin. Krillin was already small as shit, didn't know what the fuck he was. Like, alright, is this punk or...
First of all, Krillin, I mean, they literally have a fucking wolf as a president. I believe.
Yeah, but what?
They have a wolf as a president.
They do. I forgot about that shit.
Where it is not at all practical to only have a
No, he's not even the president. He's like the king of the world. Like, I don't know, the hierarchy in Dragon Ball Z is so weird. Like, the king of Earth is basically a doll. Like literally like he's a dog.
Begin living together.
Quote unquote, the guardian of Earth is Kami, the Namekian. Now he's in there. And then I think after Kami, it's the Supreme Ties. Then after Supreme Ties, that's what Beerus and Whis come.
Known about my wanting a motorcycle for as long as she's known me, and finally she approved me to spend up to $1,500 on a bike if I could find one. Well, I found one for $2,000 on Craigslist, and it turned out the guy selling it was a friend from an old job I had as a security guard. He was a good friend and agreed to give me a friend price of $1,500. I went home and told my girlfriend, and she said that's great, we'll get it if it's the one you want. She then found the Craigslist ad. I showed her pictures, contacted my friend, and schemed to buy it out from under me for the
Hey, real quick, whenever you get a chance, can you check to see if they got Tekken on Switch?
They don't.
On Drew.
They don't.
I was just glad that my girlfriend was going to let me buy one. And he
If all the games in Nintendo, like, what? I would expect. Hold up.
I never met her, and I had never mentioned her name to him.
Mortal Kombat? I don't know. I don't play any other games besides Smash.
Oh my god. That's what I'm saying. Like I told my one friend this the same thing. Like, basically, he's
Shadow
a
Pokemon.
dog.
Nothing.
Nah, he a dog at games like he play a lot of sports games, but he played 2K a lot. I was like, bro, you really look at what 2K is and how it's played? Bro, that don't is nothing but timing. Like the way you be timing them, though, because I can see how you play. Bro, you all that
I
hype.
was first starting to make my artwork public.
Bro, play that shit. I'm like,
I had
what?
just started dating myself, but he gave a relatively significant amount of money.
And it's so weird because he's the type of person, like, he'll say he don't fuck with that shit. But like, if he's sitting down watching you play that joint and he see you whooping someone's ass, he's like, damn, bro, you whooping ass, bro. I said, bro, you can do the same shit. No, bro, I ain't even trying to do all that, bro. That's too much, bro. That's too much.
This Apom better not die.
I could literally, like, when I first tried to play 2K, bro, it's like, I was like, bro, how the fuck y'all niggas doing all this shit? Like, all the flying, jumping, slam, dunking and shit like that. I'm like, bro, what? But bro, it ain't that hard, bro. You making it harder than what it is. But nah, when I say play some tech, everybody be like, nah, bro, see, you gonna cheat me, bro. You gonna do that big dumb ass shit.
Act all surprised when she tells me. Then when we're having dinner in the restaurant on the first night, I get
Why does
down on one
Ferret
knee and propose,
know
celebrating
flamethrower?
our 3-year wedding anniversary at the end of next month.
There's a Pokemon called Ferret
People who work for
that knows
us,
flamethrower,
what our secret
even though it's a normal type
passengers
Pokemon.
don't know,
Okay.
when flying overseas, there are generally
I killed the Apom!
tracking the
Oh my
movement of your
fucking god.
aircraft for several thousand
Damn.
miles. That is how we go missing.
That's like the chillest Pokemon out there. What you got is
Apom, are you done?
10 wheelchairs
It's
get
showing
on
the
and only
handful
one
show, right?
Yes.
We call them miracles.
Yeah, what you mean?
If
When
you
he, like,
check
actually
your
lands,
dog, there's about a
he's like a
30%
centipede.
chance it's terrified before it even gets on the plane. Who
I think it was
knows
only in
how
a
scared it
movie.
gets during the actual flight?
Oh
But
no, I remember.
Romans
No.
usually try to
He
comfort a
was in.
scared animal.
He was in
All
the
you can
horn.
really
It
do
was.
is talk to
It
it.
was
If
him.
you write your pet's name on their
Him
carrier, it usually helps
made
a lot.
her
I've never
motherfucking
seen a
brother.
cat who was scared
I
in a
remember
dark
now.
room. Cats don't give a friend.
I remember.
Her brother was
There's a
annoying.
huge list of things that
But-
can be missing from the aircraft while still being allowed to fly.
No, he.
True.
I think he was trying to be like Brock. Brock was like a Pokemon breeder. He tried to be. Nah.
Be broken on the aircraft
He
while
tried
it
to
still remains airworthy.
He was a
But it's
Pokemon
noted
breeder.
at the operational limit,
No, I'm
so
talking about
the
her brother. Her
aircraft
brother
are to
wanted to be
respond to
something.
broken parts.
I don't
For
know.
instance,
I don't
if
care.
freezer lights are broken, the aircraft is restricted
But
to
that was
daytime
wrong.
use. You know how all the other arm rests
I
can be
killed a
raised
fucking
except
Shadow
for one
Pokemon. I hate this game. This game fucking sucks. These Pokemon are either OP as fuck or weak as fuck. It doesn't.
Wait, which one are you playing?
There's some flight
Pokemon
attendants may
Colosseum.
tell you to put it back in place.
Oh.
If you check a
Oh,
skateboard by
never
just
heard of that
slapping a
one.
sticker on it, it will get ridden or used as a dolly. Might
Nah,
check
Colosseum
my
was sharp, but I don't know. Battle Revolution? I don't know. It's on kind of sharp.
It was trash. I mean, it wasn't trash, but like, it was good for what it was.
I was about to say.
It had no story though, so like, that's the only reason I don't like it.
I don't even think they really made it to have a story though, cause like the main point I stand, cause like Fufu, You couldn't even catch Pokemon. You had to upload from the DS. I forget which one.
The DS.
Where to start? If your flight has
No, I think it was only Diamond and Pearl that we got it.
Station mechanics for that carrier I get called.
It's like you really couldn't do nothing unless you uploaded like
If not, we check
Pokemon
to
to
see
the
if it can be deferred to get fixed later. Either way, most of your delay is spent waiting on me to do all the paperwork to clear the aircraft.
Now, my friends get to ask me
What's
the
up with
other
all
day,
these
like,
electric
bro,
type Pokemon? Oh my fucking god.
There is also constant pressure on
Bro,
both
the
the
electric
pilots
types,
to clear
like almost all the electric types
some
are
very
dogs.
significant problems.
Do you know what that
Private airlines try
means?
to get me to
Do you
sell
know
some
anything about
very
electric type
sketchy stuff
Pokemon?
to the pilots to get them to
Girl, I
fly the
remember
way the
all that
possibly
shit.
do.
I remember all the matchups. Motherfucking electric type, they couldn't do nothing to the ground types. They were super effective against water. I think
Deferral action I was asked to perform.
and flying
Don't get
types.
me wrong, the
They were
airlines
fucking
would
flying
never
types.
willingly fly an unsafe aircraft.
That
But if
fucking
there is, say,
blows.
an engine vibration, that is just harder to see
He
how
used
around
self-destruct.
they will fly it. If the oil
That's a
is
bitch ass
super
move.
service
I
it
know.
is
That almost
delay.
killed both of my fucking
Service it at
Pokemon.
the next stop.
Damn.
Encounter something at altitude
What a
that
bitch.
you can't duplicate on the ground.
If you use self-destructive Pokemon, like you realize, like you're a
Those are the
tryhard.
ones I usually push
Like, that's
back
a
on
tryhard
depending
shit.
what it is. Also, if you
That move is not even that
have
good.
so a mechanic can fix something, don't be a
But who you playing?
I get harassed all the time by passengers.
I'm fighting an
whose sole
NPC.
purpose is to get them in the air.
You're not even playing a real person.
I tell
You can't play real people in this
not
game,
to
nigga.
load
I mean, you
packs
can, but
until I
like,
get out there, but they never listen,
Chris,
so
how you
they'll
gonna play the
be
PC and still get your ass?
nigga, I'm playing the fucking story mode.
Playing.
Flight will get misrouted is because passengers don't remove old tags. It confuses
Yeah,
handlers as
yeah.
well as the conveyor belt scanners.
Oh my
I
god,
see it
Thunder.
all the time.
What?
I used to work for
Oh my fucking
warehouse that
god. I
supplied
needed
a certain
him.
airline with items. The headsets that are given to you are not new, despite being wrapped up.
Your lineup is probably like you probably got like the weirdest lineup. I can already tell.
Who is who and what seat they are in, as well as
I could have sworn that video was
telling
not
you,
long.
The best lineup in anyone. I tell you now. Either a Blaziken or an Ernie. Either one of the two. Both of them die like sharks. You gonna need yourself an Argon.
Argon?
Yeah, Argon can learn. Nah, don't get Argon fucked up. That Joe can learn a lot of different type moves. Like, Joe, it can learn ice and electric and fire type moves all in the same, like, come on. Like, he's a powerhouse. He's a powerhouse.
It's aggro.
Another one, him on right, DPR, like, if you want Pokemon with defense, but can still, push out a lot of attacks, them shit. Now, for the other ones,
I ran up the stairs and locked myself
I say
in
this.
my room until my mother
I always kept me a Garchomp.
Why you talk about me about Pokemon?
Because, like, I'm
Like you know what you're talking about.
No, I can really tell the type of fighter that you are.
I've gotten more used to the things I've seen.
Why you acting like?
And the medication helps
Why acting like you know about
but I
Pokemon?
remember that moment so clearly because it scared
Like,
me
you
so
do realize
deeply.
that I grew up on that
I'll
shit
never
too.
forget it.
Yeah,
You're
but
not the only
like,
one.
I'm sorry you went through this.
he wasn't
and I'm happy
that
things cleared
serious.
out, even though the outcome wasn't
Bro,
optimistic.
this is how
I'm
serious
going
I
to
was.
schizophrenia. On the right
Remember
next
when
to you,
Toys R Us used to have a little
you
Pokemon
have what
tournament?
he must have been
Mhm.
going through.
I was in there.
I'm glad you're not
Did you even
there.
win?
Keep being
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
You didn't win. Stop lying,
We were on a
yo.
long holiday,
Girl,
staying
nah,
in
I ain't gonna lie. The only
seaside
thing you win, like, they let you
jungle
get a
surrounded
free
in
that
country
Pokemon. It's like,
Queensland,
oh, you win.
Australia. I was staying in their son's room who had moved to Brisbane.
And it wasn't even like I could
Each
play for
night
money. Like, you had to
a
be a certain age.
nightmare
I was
of
playing
an
that shit.
alien
I was like,
tentacle trying to grab me. After a week, I was
it'd be like
terrified of
14
going to
to
sleep,
get
but my
the gas
parents
price.
kept telling me that it was okay.
That-
I was just frightened because we were staying somewhere new and that it would be okay. Well, I couldn't get to sleep. I kept watching the clock, waiting for the sun to come up and terrified of the alien.
I'm sick of all this thunder.
2 a.m. when a large tentacle landed on the bed. I screamed in
Trying to steal
terror
my
as
thunder?
I felt the
I said I'm
tentacle
sick of all this
I
thunder.
jumped out of bed and kept screaming. My parents.
Nah, Thunder, like, in the OG Pokemon games, that was low-key one of the strongest moves.
It barely hit, though.
It didn't, but when it did, though, that jump did damage.
Each night it worked its way under a ceiling tile and onto the bed.
Cause like I remember in the Kanto, cause like, I don't know, I used to have I forget what was the final evolution. I don't remember if it was Pidgeotto or Pidgeot.
It's Pidgeot.
But, like,
Pidgeot.
Yes.
While he was out there, he
Yeah.
seemed like
I don't know why they like Pidgeotto just sounds so like
Heard it stomping,
I don't know.
Even smelled it.
But nah, he was low-key, like, he was a good Pokemon. Like, he was really strong Pokemon that he trained, like.
And Ash gave it away.
He gave it away so many good Pokemon. Like, he's really hard. Like, when he gave up Charizard, I'm like, bruh, he was low-key the strongest Pokemon.
In one of my childhood homes. Strange things happened there that drove us.
He was like tiny, like
absolutely nuts. But it became
I don't even like Ash no more, bro. Like ever since, like ever since he got rid of Charizard, I never looked at him. I really didn't. I'm like, bro, like for someone who's like, I'm gonna be Pokemon Master. Dude, this man gave away some fire. I know what was that ice Pokemon he used to have? That Joe, that Joe used to always like try to hug him. It was AC Wars, Blaze, you remember the ice jump?
No. Unless you're talking about Lapras.
It was a Pokemon. He was like basically like he was basically like a big ass ball of ice. And he had like
I don't know.
Well, he was like for ice type Pokemon, Joe's defense, like that Joe has some defense for ice type. I guess because the way his body was like set up. But bro, your man's Ash had literally every starter Pokemon there was. I'm like, ooh, like how do you have all like at one point, yeah, he had Empoleon, Torterra, and Inferno. I'm like, bro, low key, they might be like the sharpest starters. Like, it's like on some real shit. Torterra's defense, crazy. Empoleon's attack and defense, bro. Don't get me started on Inferno. Like, Inferno was just all around.
She told me they weren't dreams. It was real. My mom would go into our rooms randomly to check on us. She had serious mental health issues that got worse over the years. Occasionally she would have episodes of anxiety of something happening to us and guard us at night. Due to the traumatic death of her first child, it apparently triggered obsessive anxiety when we were younger. But I now know the whole fricked up backstory and
oh my god, it's
fucking
jump scares in a Pokemon game.
I still tend to
I hate trash cans like this.
Mom is not being my mom. That's kinda sad, actually. Didn't think this was paranormal, but definitely thought it was creepy and ended up being more than I bargained for. When I was 13, I had a small jewelry box my mom gave me that had cushions for rings. I had 6 rings that I kept in it, nothing of value, think mood rings and silver rings. But I was somewhat neurotic as a kid and had spent an afternoon arranging
I should have hit the countdown.
Put the 6 rings in a specific order. I opened the box one day and noticed that 2 of the rings were out of order. I thought someone in my family had moved them because there was zero explanation for this. I asked my family if anyone had touched them, and they all insisted no one had opened the box, but I was convinced someone had to have gone through it. My dad ended up going through our entire house checking for missing stuff, and the only missing things were an old bottle of hydrocodone from the
oh my god!
My mom's gold jewelry from a bathroom drawer.
I almost killed Espeon.
Strings of robberies in the neighborhood where thieves had
stupid bitch.
only taken prescription drugs and small gold items. None of the robberies had indications that the homes had been broken into. The things like laptops, the only other valuables had been left alone. My family wouldn't have known anything was amiss aside from the fact I was so convinced something was off. TBH, that was a pretty smart thief. Make a profit without taking enough items to rouse suspicion and leave the cops out of things for the most part. Probably never got caught. I was 24 and working at a startup.com. I spent a weekend at my parents' house, came back to my apartment and went into my bedroom where I saw my bed was made. Felt my heart starting as I stood frozen in the doorway because I never ever made my bed. It was something I consciously refused to do. After the initial shock, I went through the apartment exam.
I'm scared to kill this Murkrow, so
under the bed, etc. I calmed down after a while,
yes.
myself that
I'm trying to catch all the shadow Pokemon, but yeah. I already killed one of them. I think I killed like 2.
The Colosseum? Are you talking about the one that came on GameCube?
Yes.
We'd been in a relationship.
Let's play GameCube game?
She managed to
Yes.
somehow get a copy of my key. She
Damn,
used
since
to
when?
visit my place and snoop through my things.
Since when was the GameCube game?
She also slept in
I mean, since when could it play GameCube games? I didn't know that.
I'm playing an emulator.
I never would have known
That thing has emulators?
My laptop.
Huge red flag.
Oh,
When I was 12-ish,
damn.
Yo, you're such an old ass man.
bedroom's lights on. If it was just my bedroom, then it wouldn't be
Wait, how you find the GameCube?
With my brother's room,
I have
lights were
sources.
also on and we never leave those
Oh, give me
lights
shot,
on.
give me shot.
No, because your laptop definitely can't handle
One
that.
was in the army while the other was at work.
Girl,
I was a little
definitely get it.
freaked
Nah, I
out,
ain't
but
about
tried to tone the
Your
down.
laptop could barely even load a fucking video.
Then I turn and see a couple of
Listen.
wooden spoons on top
Listen,
of our
listen,
kitchen
it's gonna
table.
explode.
Gaming?
For a fact that
You'd
I
be
had
surprised. You'd be surprised with that.
I also didn't recognize those two spoons. That was
Your
my
laptop
No.
will explode. I'm letting you know that.
Long story short, I had lost my keys a few days prior and my neighbor, who was the same age as I, found them. Instead of giving it back, he kept them with himself. Days later,
You are a pirate.
IDK deliver something
I
to
am a
me,
pirate. And what you
but
gonna do
there
about it?
was
Nothing.
no one
Okay.
home, so he used his keys to enter our house. He forgot his mom's wooden spoons there, and if it wasn't for this, we would never have found out that he entered our house. I think he stole money from us as well. Still doesn't explain why he had his mom's
I have many
spoons
secrets,
locked.
Wesley.
IDK if it fits, but this happened a few days ago, on Valentine's night, the 14th of February. I live on the ground floor of some apartments. There was really intense knocking on my door and some neighbors' doors at midnight. I looked out the peephole of my door but couldn't see anything even when my door got knocked on again.
Today was a surprise
I
stream.
couldn't see anything. After a minute or so, I heard my upstairs neighbor's door open.
I ain't even gonna hold you. This just popped in my head. But when Lil Wayne said, he said, I straight take all your possessions for that shit poltergeist. Had snipers on them.
Using her and had just kicked her out of the apartment. It was freezing outside and she was only in her underwear.
Wesley, you gonna report me to fucking Nintendo, you asshole? You snitching now?
It took
Said I call that bitch playing Jane because she had nut like a fight.
Update the 18th of
That's
February.
what
She came over to
That boy
borrow
got
my
bald.
phone to call a family member. She
Nah,
sends
what you
the
say though, that
request
shit-
calling the police, but
I was talking to
still
someone in
has
chat.
leave her husband. The police didn't help her. I don't have much
I'm
more to say
trying to
besides
like
that.
not turn.
I almost think that mother should be charged with attempted murder. You locked her outside in the freezing cold, unable to see well, nearly naked, and unable to even get inside her car for shelter or call for help. Having her die of hypothermia almost seems intentional to me here. Sorry, piece of crap. My uncle bought an old house, 150-ish years old, as a fix-up project. If you went up the stairs you had an option to turn right or left. Left led to
Okay, Moonbot is actually censoring everything. I don't know what the fuck.
She would cry and run away if you tried to take her right. My cousin insisted that the bedroom.
You say you was gonna snitch, so
It's a frightened dog. Later we worked on the house and found that the landing to the right was structurally unsafe. To this day we wonder, did the dog know the landing was unsafe somehow, or was there something more sinister at play? Creaking wood gives off a lot of infrasound. It's possible the dog could hear the structural weakness. This happened to my cousin's friend, living in San Francisco in the early 90s. I was
my Moonbot is actually
so
a
I don't
fucking
remember the exact details.
Terminator.
Typical
Moonbot, nigga, Moonbot. I mean Nightbot. Fuck.
One night when she was trying to sleep,
Yo.
she heard loud banging noises coming from upstairs, followed by sounds of washing. The washing
You didn't even know what a Moonbot is anyway.
We thought it was annoying, but completely normal. Upstairs, neighbor probably couldn't sleep and decided to move some furniture and deep clean the bathroom.
That's that
Morning,
one.
she saw her neighbor going downstairs with large black trash bags. Again, she told herself it's weird but normal, since her neighbor has been up late cleaning. A few weeks later, she learned that her upstairs neighbor had gotten into a dispute with the roommate, was killed in dismay.
And the other was shaped like
The
a rock.
roommate was caught.
But they
The
did
police
absolutely.
discovered large trash bags of
You said
bodies.
absolutely nothing?
The incident happened
Like those, like I don't know, certain Pokemon, like I swear they just made them just.
You have to be a special sort of fricked up to methodically take a person apart and then clean like it's just
Wesley, how did you make your
strolling past your
Discord
neighbor's trash bags of human pieces
thing
of
not
meat.
expired?
A little after I graduated high school, some friends and I were hanging out at a local park after dark.
Like, I want to
You
update my
word.
Discord
For
thing.
the spookiness of it. About 20 minutes and we hear this loud screaming from behind us and barely see this dark figure rushing towards us at what we would describe as supernatural speed. So we hauled butt and didn't stop until we were out of the wooded area and didn't see it. A couple of friends claimed it appeared to be floating towards us as it howled like a banshee. We later found out that area of the
That
woods
came
was
at a
popular
decent
for
time.
homeless
I'll probably
people to
be
hang out in and chill. So instead of some sort of evil wood spirit, it was most likely a homeless H addict running at us at full speed and screaming. H addict? Probably not H. They may be just like
Can you show me how to do that after your stream,
I'm
Wesley?
guessing it was probably H. I had a blind dog growing up and she barked at things that were there and things that weren't. One night, around midnight, she woke up my mom and I, my dad's too heavy of a sleeper, by barking at the wall next to the back door. I woke up but I was maybe 9, so I went right
Okay, this
back to
fortress is
sleep.
actually blowing
My mom
me.
got up and ushered her back to bed. That same night, an arsonist hit my neighborhood. He
They got a
"Father,
fortress?"
vacant
I said this
house
fortress is
down to the
actually
ground."
blowing me.
Following his footsteps in the snow, he then
That's
passed
not.
between my
Nah,
bedroom
what's
and
that?
car
I'm
garage
thinking
and
of the
nearly
other
hit
one.
our
What's that one
garage.
Pokemon? It
Then
was
our dog and my mom woke up, and we think that
it's the
scared him
last
away. And he went
evolution
across the street
of
and
Seedot.
burned the neighbor's garage
I almost said
instead. Then we
Ludicolo,
stood
but I
in the
know it's not
front yard
Ludicolo.
and watched him
That's
burn.
shift
He
tree.
walked out onto the street and they
Yeah,
lost his
nah,
footsteps.
Shiftry,
They
bro.
never
That was
caught
low
him.
key. Like, if you
R.I.P.
had the right
Oreo. I
bullshit
miss
on
you.
him,
You were a very
a
good
sharp
pal.
ass
Love you.
Pokemon.
You think every Pokemon is a sharp ass Pokemon?
Oreo.
It all depends on how you
Not
use
sure
it.
if
Like,
this really
well, I don't know. I
counts,
use a
but
lot of
about
fighting
5
type
years
Pokemon.
ago
I use a
I
lot of
got a
fighting
phone
rock
call
type.
from my brother and he just kept mumbling into the phone. He kept
Shift tree's
mumbling
garbage.
because I was younger.
What?
Probably thought he was
Nigga,
The
this
only
thing
thing
is
he was,
He had
garbage.
just had a seizure and
the only
had
thing
just
he
woken
probably
up.
should get
My brother
tired
gets
of
really
is a
woozy and
fucking
panicky after he has a seizure. It scared the living heck out of me. I like how your
I'm surprised I got
brother
that
said he
fortress.
was possessed. Lol. My friend lived up in these pitch black windy hills about 20 minutes from any ambient
Skepball is
city.
not trash.
No traffic stoplights, street lights, nothing. One night when driving up to visit him I reached a
I think they're
stop
all
sign.
equally good.
I looked left, no one there. Looked right, no one there. Then proceeded to make a left turn. From the time it took for me to look left,
It depends on which one's ever
a man
good.
stepped into
I mean, the
street
best
about
looking
10
one.
feet in front of my car. I immediately slammed on my brakes and he
Yes.
just stood there. My car lights hitting him, not moving. I slowly
Oh,
just
no, I-
drove
I-
around
I-
him and he kept facing forward as I
No, I like
didn't
Charizard.
turn his head at all
Blastoise
to look
is
at me
strong.
make
I'm
eye
not gonna lie.
contact.
Blastoise
I
is
get
got
to
like
my
strong
friend's
start.
house convinced I had seen a ghost and was
And,
freaking out about it. My friend asked me to describe
Yeah,
the
I'm
man I saw.
And
And when I did,
I don't really
he
like
tells me it was a diddler that
Well, I
moved
do
in
like
down the
the
street with the diddleress. Parents after getting out of jail. TL Doctor. A man stepped in front of my car in the
Wesley
middle
said,
of
check my
nowhere.
DMs. You mean
Thought
check
it
my
was a
text
ghost, but
messages?
ended up being a convicted and recently released from jail diddler. Maybe he wanted you to run him over and kill him. We lived in this big,
I can't be
beautiful
real, I've just
farmhouse
finished
in the
everything.
middle of nowhere, California. It was my first time having my own room. Mom was devastated.
I'm gonna kill
because
this
the
Ariados in
landlord
like
evicted us
2
after
hits.
a few months, saying we need the house back for the farm hands.
I said
There may
Ariados.
have been more to it, but I was a little kid at the time. My uncle helped us pack everything up and asked if we left anything in the attic.
And we
Mom
just
said
finished
she'd
the
never
entire
been
list.
up there, but he was welcome to look. There was only one entrance, through my bedroom.
Oh
When
my
he
god,
got up
Espion
there,
gonna
he
die.
found my favorite Cabbage Patch doll hung by its neck from the ceiling. There were candles in a circle beneath it that had burned to wax puddles and cigarette butts on the floor. It looked like someone was conducting
Yeah,
a
we're
scene
fucked.
up there with my toys.
Sam's
After
thing.
that, Mom was totally
Wesley, you
fine
can't
with us
spell.
moving out as fast as humanly
Sam's
possible.
thing.
Wish I had a better ending for you, but we never found out who did it or why. My only clue is one night my sister claimed to see the silhouette of a man hanging out in her doorway watching her sleep. Mom was a single parent.
That's not fair.
We didn't have a father figure or visiting relative, so who knows? Oh, that does sound creepy. Towards my second half of high school, everything started feeling like it was all going downhill. It felt like to me, there was some unseen outside force making my life heck. Turns out that I actually have type 1 diabetes, and in that time of
I heard
my
type
second
1
half of high
diabetes.
school was when
I was gonna say, because once you put that out there, everything is done.
I have a little dog that barks at everything.
Things like
I
this
was watching
prime
a
me, because then they gonna be like,
scary
whoa,
movie
find
alone one
something.
night and my dog ran to the back door and started barking like crazy. Once I got over the initial fear on Ghost, I realized that
Nah,
she
they told us we
probably
can't even
needed
do
to
that no
pee.
more.
I let her out and she
We
ran
stopped that a
straight
minute
to a
ago.
bush in the corner. She keeps barking at the bush, so
Nah,
I go out to
they
see what
said
it is, thinking a cat or
that she was knew
squirrel.
they wasn't gonna
There
say
is
nothing.
nothing there, so I
Yeah,
pick
they
her
not
up
gonna
and
let that
take her
slide.
inside. When I turned to walk, I saw some kind of shadow, so definitely
That's
Ghost
it.
now, and I run.
Oh my god, paralyzed nigga, paralyzed.
My dog continues to bark at the window, but looking out there is nothing there. The next day a cop shows up at my door.
Trying to say it's because
Got
you
accosted
do
in
it
my
like that, you
backyard
basically
the night
leave the day
before,
for
and
how
the
long
house
you
on the
out
other
there.
side was broken into while the people were asleep. The guy didn't take anything. He was just walking around when someone found him. They think the guy was in the backyard to get to the two houses. So sometimes I get sleep paralysis. I've accepted that if I wake up and weird things are happening, I should just ignore them. Well, one time I woke up in the middle of the night to two male voices arguing. Nothing unusual. I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep when I heard my dog start barking, growling, and then heard my parents talking in concerned voices. I realized it was not sleep paralysis at all, and got up to find a very drunk father and son duo arguing outside our front window. Started swearing at us when my dad yelled at them to move along. Cops were called. Another time, same situation, only it was a vole tunneling into my room very noisily and eating through the drywall.
Damn, that Grovile was going through it.
To a woman's voice. I live in a quiet residential total
Yee-hoo.
suburb, and there
Like a
aren't
horse.
many noises past 8 p.m.
It
normally. I thought I was dreaming or hearing a ghost. It made my hair stand on end. To be safe, I peeked out the window and didn't see anything unusual. I was about to fall back asleep when I heard urgent, low voices. I tried to understand them, but it sounded like a guttural, surreal language. Demons? Then I heard distinctly, just get in the car,
scared as shit to make a rated R movie.
and some sounds of struggling from
Like,
my
bruh,
backyard.
stop being
My
some
mind
money.
immediately jumped to there's a woman in
Asking.
danger. I need
Stop
to do
trying to make
something,
a
so
movie.
I threw on some
Like, this is
clothes
not
and
how
ran
Disney make
outside.
movies. You sit
In
there,
my yard
fucking
was a woman writhing on
dogs.
the ground and
Like,
a man standing
what's a
above
movie
her.
that we can
I
get
yelled something
largest
along
amount
the
of
lines
people?
of get away from me, freaking creep, and
Bro,
then
just
noticed
make
he
a
was
damn
wearing a police
movie, bro.
uniform. And
Shit,
beside
Make
her
a
was
good
a man
movie.
pointing a gun at the writhing woman.
I hate, like, I don't know, most movies that come out now, like, everyone wants to make some box office.
Stay
That's
away
I'm like,
from the
bro,
windows. Don't open
get a
that
cool,
door again until morning.
cool
I
$20, $30 million, make a sharp ass action
Still
movie.
don't know what happened. I'm guessing drugs. When my friends and I initially entered college, we used to chill a lot at my friend's dad's house, who lived out in the country. Late at night, when scanning the
Oh my god.
horizon, you could see all of the stars. It wasn't like the city, but you could also see a radio tower, perhaps a few miles away. One late fall night, maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, we decided to drive out to this radio tower, just out of curiosity. It was in the middle of a large field with one entrance which happened to be open. We entered from there and drove about 1/4 mile in towards the radio tower. When we got there, we noticed, underneath the radio tower, a rusty beat-up car. The thing looked like it hadn't been driven in years. We pulled to the other side of the tower and just chilled for a little bit, talking about whatever and listening to music. Then one of my friends pointed towards the beat-up car. Does it look like there's a light in there, he said. We all stared at the car and sure enough, emanating behind the dust-covered windows of the car was
Oh my fucking god, it's 90 fucking base attack. I mean accuracy. Please fucking hit the character, please. Oh my god.
Relatively slow. The same friend who pointed out the light noticed that the car started moving along with us, following slowly. It didn't put on its headlights, but the light inside the car seemed to glow. That was the moment that my friend driving screamed. Frick it and
No, cause like, why is a 90 base move like missing? The fuck?
Literally in this case.
Like 90 base accuracy. So annoying.
Ghost car story. Did we really believe in ghosts?
I need her for this battle. I need her.
Paranormal is better than whatever else it could have been. Come to find out, a few years later, that field was regularly being monitored by the local sheriff's office for big drug deals that apparently went down there. Had we stuck around any longer that night than we did, we could have legitimately been killed. This was also in the era that we watched a lot of Breaking Bad, so in retrospect it seemed to us like that could have very much been a likely outcome from that night. Luckily we're all good and nothing bad ever came of it for any of us. For several months during my senior year of high school and all through the summer before I left for college, I kept hearing noises coming from the
I
attic.
swear to God, you better not fucking flinch. You better not flinch. You better not fucking
And I
flinch.
told my parents
Where?
and brothers that it sounded like
I'll
someone
ruin
moving
your
in the
life.
attic and dragging a chain on the ground. My
Damn.
dad even had me go sleep on the couch one night so he could sleep in my room to try to hear it. My older brother went up into the attic. Nothing. I left for
And you
college
fucking
and
died.
didn't really
Great.
think much of it.
Great.
When I returned from my first visit home,
And this is
my
where I draw
dad
the
revealed
line.
he'd found a small leak in one of the pipes that rotted a hole in the ceiling above my bed. The drip of water had been ricocheting around the pipes, sounding like chains dragging. I knew a kid when I was 10 who lived alone with his father up a dirt road in the middle of the woods. We were pretty good friends one summer. Everyone in our area, rural as heck, we all knew each other, thought the dad was really weird. Among the younger kids, there were rumors that the dad was a monster or a zombie or something. For one, he smelled freaking awful and had the rankest carrion breath. Also, he would stare at the kids a lot. Creepy as heck. When I was 14, I found out that my friend was not the guy's son.
He fucking
But the
stop.
creepy guy had in fact kidnapped him when he was 7 or
cannot
so and
adjust
had
these
kept him
notes without
captive up in the
like your
woods,
touch it.
violating
Like,
him
that's cool.
repeatedly. My friend also turned 14 when I did, which apparently was too old to be appealing to the creepy dad, who promptly kidnapped another little boy from a town about 70 miles away and brought him back to the cabin where he lived with my friend.
That draw like frying me, yo. That draw like
He
frying me. Rah, rah, rah.
a kind of lost boy with a juvenile record, to take my friend out into the woods and kill him, so he could be alone with his new victim.
That draw like
He was, I
frying
think,
you.
5 years old. My friend realized that the same had happened to him. He'd been brainwashed for 7 years.
Come on,
He
son.
felt bad
Come on.
parents
Come on,
hadn't
son.
loved him anymore and had given him
Come
to
on,
the
bro.
creepy guy to adopt him.
Bro.
So he waited until the creep went to work, grabbed the little boy,
Damn, always trying to be
and
me.
walked about 40 miles to the nearest police station, saved the kid from a terrible fate, ended up going back to the family he'd been taken from 7 years before. It was in the news a lot, and a TV movie was made,
That joint said
etc.
out of
So, the creepy, smelly old weirdo really was
You know it's out of stock.
He died in prison.
You know it's out of
and
stock.
was a good day.
My brain
While I was
cells.
with my ex, we lived with his parents for a bit in a kind of granny flat above their garage. I'd often take naps through the day while he
Oh my
was
God!
awake,
Fucking catch the damn
inexplicably
fucking
move
dog.
around, go missing while I was asleep. Never happened when he was home or when I was away.
Holy shit!
I was
Critical hit.
convinced the place was haunted and whatever spirit it was had it out for me. Turns out
I'm
his
sick of
dad
this
was
damn
coming in
ball.
and doing this, with the intention of making it look like I was nuts so I would be discredited when I spoke out against his abusive butt son. I was 7 years old, home alone.
Once I was
Parents
7
went for the night
years
around 9 p.m.
old.
They left me in bed for me to sleep. I was past
Hey yo, you trying to like?
went downstairs
You
and
copying
ate
me?
some milk and cookies to watch TV in my parents' bedroom. While I was getting my snacks, I felt
I'm
like
not a big
someone
fan of
grabbed
singing,
my
but that's
shoulder
all right.
hardly. I was so scared I couldn't even turn around to check who did it. I stayed there, frozen, for at least 1 minute straight. I had the balls to run and went to my parents' bedroom. I locked myself in there and didn't get out until my parents came home. It was 3 a.m. and heard my parents' car park outside the window. I was never so happy for them to come
Alright,
home.
this cold
As
starting to
soon my
make fools
parents
run
got to
again.
the house, my mom screamed and called
Damn.
911. The thing I thought was a ghost that grabbed me was actually a drug addict who secretly lived in our basement and that night thought nobody was home so went grabbed some snacks from the fridge too and confused my shoulder with the fridge's door and then passed out. Still freaks me out to this day. Keep losing my underpants.
Hold up.
Finally found them in my cousins and whole family in the cabin trailer, sweet little boys full of
Fucking lawnmowers.
Cabin was totally quiet. A flash of light no bigger than
Yes.
a lit the whole trailer up in a blue smoke. Odd smelling flash. Wife and I were certain it was a Ghostbusters type of weird crap. I went outside. Nothing but that odor. But total darkness. Apparently light struck a power transformer 3 miles away that finally grounded out right next to our trailer.
It was just here like 8 minutes ago. I don't know why the fuck they're back.
Folded away from the center mount. I'm not sure this fits because I didn't think it was paranormal. I just thought my mental state was deteriorating severely. Basically, I became super isolated and depressed. was suffering from a health conditions that doctors in the UK either never heard of or didn't know how to treat, despite me having notes from my doctors back home. So yeah, I was indoors a lot and feeling worse every day. I started noticing something in the corner of my vision. Strange movement, but only on my left side. I could never catch whatever it was. It just
I need to
looked
heal my
like a dark,
Pokemon.
unfocused blob. This went on for weeks. I eventually chalked it up to being tired. But then I thought my entire health was going south, so that had to be yet another symptom. One morning I woke up facing the same side of that room when I noticed the blob again. It came closer and closer from another corner of the room and stopped in the corner I was facing. It was a mouse. Tiny little thing. God dang it. Few years ago I was 15. I was lying down in bed chilling, minding my business about 9 p.m. I heard a small racket in the backyard, thinking that it was my dad. Few moments later my dad opened my door and asked, "Hey, were you outside?" I was like, "No, I thought it was you." So we both go and check the backyard. There was this woman sitting on our fence. Turned her head and saw us with her hair down. Then jumped off and started running around the backyard grass for no reason. I was shatting myself and my dad threatened that he will call the cops. Few seconds later she rapidly climbed the fence to the neighbor's house. We went to go to the neighbor's house but acted weird and said he doesn't know anything. We deduced it was some really drugged up person who was off their nut. My mom lives in Mexico, close to the Texas border and the Gulf of Mexico. She also lived close to a military base. Where she lives there's a lot of violence, shootouts, people hanged on the bridge with no heads act. So I came to visit my mom for like 3 months and I've been to Mexico several times, so I got used to seeing the Mexican army and Marines riding around town with big butt guns and hearing crazy local stories. I also know how to get around and blend in with locals so I won't stand out. While I was there one day I was home alone. I went outside to feed and pet my mom's
Oh my
dog.
fucking
It was
god.
already dark and then out of nowhere I hear these really loud scream between a human and an animal. I got so freaking scared because I thought it was some ghost Lorona or someone was being tortured on some cartel type crap. I went back inside, put my earphones on and played music so I couldn't hear the noise. The next day I only went outside to feed the cats. During the day I didn't hear anything. But at night when I fed the cats I saw the Mexican military pass in front of my mom's house. It was a routine checkup on the neighborhood. And the sound started again, but they weren't faced by it. At this point I thought someone was getting tortured and the Mexican army turned a blind eye, which is very common here. So I was even more scared. When my mom came back I told her what happens about the really loud screaming noises. She started laughing
Hi.
at me and told me that at the end of the neighborhood lived a rich, narco person who owned a ranch and he had peacocks that would make the really scary sounds at night. My family still makes fun of me to this day.
They ain't do shit.
Funny story. Peacocks are crazy sounding. Actually 2 days ago my plant's water supply were full. One is basically a turkey baster with a large liter water bottle on the back end. You stab the squirty end into the soil and water is released as the soil dries up and evaporates. The other is a 5-gallon hydroponic tank. My last distinct memory of the bottle was on Thursday night because the water level was exactly 1 inch above the soil level. I avoided filling the bottle that night because if I poke it too deep, and it gets near a drainage hole, the bottle drains in a matter of minutes and leaves a big puddle on the ground. When I woke up the bottle was 100% full and all of my other plants had been misted as the dew was still very much on the leaves still. The hydroponic
What the
tank
fuck?
was full as well. This would take at least 20 minutes to drain the old water, pH balance, and refill with fresh water. I live alone and my GF has a key, but doesn't really take care of plants like that, and definitely wouldn't know how to fill the water bottle without flooding the floor or drain fill hydroponic setups. I asked her and she hasn't touched my plants in months. I don't have a history of sleepwalking, but it's the only thing I can think of at the moment. I do have a history of extreme sleep apnea though. If you don't
But
already
yeah,
have
now
one,
Thunder's gonna hit like
might want to
24/7.
invest in a code detector. One of the symptoms of co-poisoning is short-term memory loss. One guy on Reddit some time ago kept finding post-it notes around his place and thought someone was breaking in, but in reality it was him leaving the notes due to company. I stayed up late one night and went to bed around 3 in the morning. My room was pitch black and I hopped into bed to get comfortable. All of a sudden it felt like something jumped into bed with me. I was in disbelief. I felt around and didn't feel anything. Then I felt it again, and this time I freaked the frick out. I hopped out of bed and turned the light on. There was nothing in my room. So I told the demons to get fricked and leave me alone. I browsed Reddit until I fell asleep. I found out the next
How the fuck did
morning
S be on? Okay.
which is extremely rare to happen where I live. I'm going to guess you live in Kansas because this same thing happened to me recently, except I told Satan himself to frick off. I started firmly believing in ghosts in middle school. My freshman year of high school, I knew there was one who stood in my room by the closet, and I had an
Fucking
one
Ampharos is
day
getting
and
on my
started yelling at it through my mind because I was angry that it was watching me. A sudden weight came down in my head and I knew what had happened. It was punishment. The ghost was inside my head. For years I kept quiet about it, knowing people would just think I was crazy or lying. In the meantime I lost basically all emotions except for fear. The rest sink no deeper than surface level, and I stopped feeling rested after I slept. I chalked both of these things up to the ghost. Turns out I was so quick to believe in ghosts because I have OCD that tells me I'm being observed 24/7, and the idea of ghosts being the culprit fit perfectly into my interpretation of my surroundings. This obsession will
Come the
likely
fuck
never
on.
go away fully. My brain feeds me lies every waking moment, and all I can do is
I
learn
need
to
to
overcome them.
heal
As
up.
for the
Oh
weight
my
in my
god, my
head,
Pokemon are
it's still there.
dying.
Almost 10 years later. So far all the doctors I've seen for it seem uninterested in helping me after basic scans and tests come back negative. If I ever find out what it really is, I'll try to remember to update. My OCD and paranormal delusions stem mostly from an unbalanced thyroid. That heaviness is in my head too when I'm not right. I hope you get the treatment you need. About 3 years ago while laying in bed I felt a presence. Then I felt a hand pressing forcefully on the back of my head. I heard a voice telling me to choose between this life and the next. Over the course of the next few months I felt, heard, and understood many things not of this world. After finally breaking down and having enough I attempted to end my life. Only after did I find out that I had a non-functioning thyroid, probably for a while, and so many lab abnormalities. It all triggered a state of psychosis that led to me almost dying. My dad lives like next door to the entrance to the highway. His neighbor kept complaining that she had raccoons cause she kept hearing noise coming from under her back porch. It wasn't raccoons, it was the 3 hobos that stood near the highway asking for money. They would wait until they would see her lights go off and then make their way over. The scary part is that she has dogs and seems like they
I'm
didn't
hungry as
notice
hell.
either cause the hobos had mattresses underneath there and clearly had been there for a while. You've encountered the lost treasure of Captain Gus Fishhead. Subscribe to receive some of his gold. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.
What?
Parents of Reddit, what is your best? Why is my kid so stupid?
I'm streaming, I can't get any.
Me waking into the bathroom to check on my 4-year-old son having a bath.
My god,
Why are you
move.
slashing your dong with that toy hammer? I have vivid memories of squeezing my balls trying to figure out why it hurt so much. My 12-year-old daughter blamed a squirrel when we asked how the borax for her slime projects moved from the garage to the kitchen counter. It's so fulfilling to go from "I'm pretty sure you're lying"
You're so full of shit, the
100%
toilet's
I know
jealous.
you're lying. My older brother carved my name into the side of my mum's car with a rock for whatever reason and tried to blame it on me. I was like 4 years old and couldn't write yet. My mom told me about when she was a kid and one time she scratched her name into the dining room table. She did it absent-mindedly and freaked out when she realized what she did, so she
Oh
scratched all
my
her
god.
brothers' names into the table
Becky,
too.
look at her butt.
I'm amazed at how many times I've had to say don't lick that.
Tucci.
My daughter
Tucci.
insists wearing a jacket will make her cold because she only wears it when she is cold. Can't refute that logic.
I'm about to hack the game
My son,
again.
who was 8 at the time, and an only child, carved his very long
Because I
name
don't feel
into
like
the toilet
grinding.
seat, then claimed he didn't do it. Lol. My toddler watched at least an hour of an animated movie populated entirely by talking animals. Suddenly, a giraffe came on screen and said something. My kid stood up, pointed at the TV, and
Don't worry, I'm
angrily
gonna
yelled,
do
"What?
reasonable level.
Giraffes can't talk." Lol, this was funny. He must have a problem with giraffes.
If you could be any animal, what would
Wanna
you
see
be?
a trick? Sure, honey. Show me a trick. Kid runs around in circles to build up momentum. Very deliberately crashes head first into the wall, then falls down and starts crying. Comma, good trick, sweetie. When my brother was around 6, he decided he wanted to play Tarzan with a cord hanging in his room. However, the cord kept slipping from his hand, so he decided to swing with it around his neck instead. My poor
Ooh, water
grandmother
pose.
walked into the room to find her grandchild apparently trying to hang himself. Our daughter, when asked what she wanted to be when she grows up, answered, "I want to be a strawberry,
Fuck.
but if that's too hard, I want to be purple."
I wanted them all to
The
be
color
50.
purple, the fruit strawberry. She was 5. My son has microwaved ramen noodles with no water a few times. Just so you know, they are flammable and smoke horribly and turn your microwave an awful yellow color. That's nothing. Some grown-butt adult who alleges to be a good chef burned boxed mac and cheese 3 different times. If you burn the same thing the same way 3 times, that's totally on you for being a dum-dum. When I was a kid, my little brother woke up and thought he saw Frankenstein walking down our hallway in the middle of the night. He took off running in his underwear, out the door, down the block. Several blocks really. A couple picked him up maybe 4 blocks away and brought him home. He was on his way to my grandmother's trailer a good half-mile away. Kicker was, the Frankenstein he saw was my grandmother who was staying with us that night. Took a while to live that one down. He gets extra points for having a decent plan anyway. When a sudden rainstorm hit our campsite, my 11-year-old rescued a full water bucket from the rain and put it under the canopy to keep it dry. You can't let that water get hypothermia. When I caught him peeing in the doorway of his room at the age of 5. His reason? Cause I don't want the kitty coming into my room. Smart. Gotta mark your territory.
The fuck?
I was that kid. My parents took my siblings and I to a greenhouse garden. Everyone was on their best behavior until I got the sudden urge to lick some foamy stuff off of a window. I was always a good kid. Never caused any trouble, but for whatever reason I had this compulsion to lick this foamy stuff off the window. Poison control had to be called. My parents were frantic. It was an ordeal. I was anaphylactic to milk at the time too, and I was definitely old enough to know better. One time my mom asked me what color my eyes were, so I started looking around trying to see them. A true visionary. My kids actually seem okay, but here's something I did. Young, about 9, and walking through Paddy's Market in Sydney, about 1971. Dad says I can have $10, a decent amount at the time, to buy anything I want in the market for my birthday. So we're walking around, and I spot a giant crab. This thing is about a foot across. I decided that is what I want for my birthday. I want the crab. Son, we have nowhere to keep it. We can keep it in the bathtub. What if we want a bath? We can take showers instead. I did not get my crab and cried about it, and refused to pick anything else too. When my sister was 18, she was planning a trip to California after HS graduation. She spent several days calling banks to get the exchange rate for money because somehow she was absolutely convinced that regular US currency in Pennsylvania was not usable in California. She thought the banks were all lying to her that it was the same money. I am surprised she even found California. If I can be the kid who made my parents ask this question. I walked into a wall when I was 5 because I was walking around looking through binoculars backwards. Got these 2 massive red bruises around my eyes. That's freaking hilarious. When the axe challenge was a thing, apparently, you spray axe over the front of your shirt, light it on fire, then take the shirt off. I think that's it. Anyway, this genius gets his arm stuck or something as he pulled the shirt off inside out, so, of course, the fire is now burning his face. He gets
Oh
up
Lord
with the
Jesus,
help
there's a
of his
fire.
friends and gets taken to the hospital with
I
second-degree
ran.
burns by his friend's
I
mother
ran.
because he was staying over. That was a fun phone call to get at 3 a.m. Dad, I'm okay, but I had an accident and Karen has taken me to the hospital to get treated. I told her it wasn't a big deal, but she made me call. On Mother's Day, when I was only small, my dad told me for Mother's Day we would give my mum a lion because she had had a stressful week between jobs. Of course, tiny me had no concept of what a lion was and assumed my dad said a lion. Me, are we actually getting mom a lion? Dad, yes, your mum really deserved a lion, so we'll give her one this morning. I then proceed to sprint excitedly to my parents' room, climb onto the bed, jump up and down over my poor sleeping mother screaming, wake up, we are getting you a lion, wake up right now. My mother did not get a lamb, or a lion for that matter. AWW, that's so wrong and so cute. I was at my sister's for Thanksgiving and my niece who is 5 went to feed the dog. She was out of eyesight for maybe 2 minutes when my sister yells stop eating the dog food, and you can hear my niece drop the bowl out of fright because she got caught. My sister never got off the couch and I laughed about it for like 10 minutes straight. My mother always brings up when she asked my brother to turn on the kettle and he answered, "Shall I make it hot or cold?" and I thought I was stupid. I'd absolutely ask for cold in such case. If he doesn't make it cold, well, that was some fun. If he somehow did, jackpot. This is about me, and I'm sure my mom almost killed me for this. In 5th grade, I decided it would be a wonderful idea to lock my backpack to my desk with a bike lock I brought to school, for some reason, and swallow the key for it. I went to the year and the lock stayed there the whole year. I love the part of swallowing the key. When I was 11 we were at a park that had one of those swirly slides that is kind of like a tunnel. Well, I wanted to act like a mountain climber and tie a rope around myself and jump down the slide to climb back up. What was the best spot to tie the rope? I asked myself. The neck. Good
The
location to easily
frames.
grab the rope and pull myself back up. Plus convenient tying spot. My parents ran to me yelling and stopped me mid-knot, tying a rope around my neck to jump down a slide.
I almost
In
killed that thing.
retrospect, I'm a dumbass. You should be grateful to your parents, like really grateful, because of them you can comment about your stupidity. As a kid I would always try to touch hot things, like the stove or the clothes iron, even after my mom warned me. She eventually figured frick it, she can touch it, burn herself and learn her lesson. Well, I did not learn the first time, or the second time, or the third time. Honestly, my mother lost
Of
count on
course.
how many times I actually burned myself.
Of
She
course.
started guarding me again since I was clearly too dumb to learn from my mistakes, so I got smarter about how to get around her. I couldn't make the connection of careful it's hot equals it will hurt like heck equals don't touch it, but I could make the connection of do it quickly pretend like you listened equals you'll be able to touch it. I also had a cousin who had an interesting reaction to punishment. Let's say he wasn't allowed to play a video game. He would then try to get rid of all his toys, demand to only be served food that he hated, and sit on the floor facing a wall. When asked what he was doing he would answer, "Since you seem to like taking away things that make me happy, I've decided to be miserable forever." Now my guess is he wanted the grown-ups to feel bad for him, but the whole thing was hilarious. So dramatic. When I was little, my car had a cigarette lighter in it and I thought it would be fun to put it on my fingers to make a cool pattern. I didn't realize it was scorching hot until I had burned every one of my fingers on me. My youngest, around the age of 3, lost having curtains in his room after the second time he bent the hook that the curtain rod hangs onto because he tried swinging on his curtains.
Big brain
It turns
praise.
out that the tiny piece of metal that's designed to hold the
I was
weight
talking
of
to
a
the
curtain
stream.
rod is not designed to support a child. Several years later we'd moved to a new house, and decided he was certainly old enough to stop swinging on curtains. We made sure to sit down with him to explain that when he was little, he would swing on them, and that it broke the curtain rods. Now that he was around 6 or 7, he was old enough to remember not to climb the curtains. He lost the curtains the next day, after he tried swinging on them. Perhaps he thought we were lying to him? Okay, but that could happen to
The fuck?
anyone. And 6 or 7, that's still pretty young. When he was 10, he grabbed the wooden towel bar in the bathroom and fell backwards, and then kept falling, because the small wooden rod was only attached to the rest of the towel
Since
bar by a
when?
small piece of wood that was glued to the main structure, and, once again, was meant to support the
Hold
weight
up.
of a wet towel or two, not a 10-year-old child. Dang near gave himself a concussion on the side of the bathtub that time. Not my kid, but my niece loves crawling around on the floor trying to lick doorstops. When she's not doing that, she actively searches for dust lint on the floor and tries to devour it before you take it from her. I worked at a daycare for a while. There was a toddler who came in with what looked like rug burns on his forehead and nose. When I asked Mom what happened, she sighed and said he has to lick the spots of light on the carpet. Double quote. When my daughter was around 5 years old, I told her to start putting her toys away. She told me she couldn't because she didn't have any hands, while showing me her hands. My daughter was wrapped up in a towel like a burrito after a bath. Tried to point to something in the book I was reading to her
The
while
fuck?
she cried, and suddenly freaked out because she couldn't find her hands. Walked into the bathroom to see my 3-year-old girl with a toilet bowl brush in her mouth. So that was disgusting. What could possibly be going through her mind? Lose debit card. Go through a painful renewal process. Finally arrives in the mail. Kid asks, can I see it? He takes it and bends it in half. Not me, but my younger brother loved eating ants. He just grabbed a bunch of them and put them in his mouth and started chewing. I guess they bit him, but he didn't.
Oh my god, I think I
The bites make it
know where to go
zesty.
now.
My little sister
Cause it's
said she
fucking
wanted
random.
to become a toilet when she grew up. I remind her of it quite often. I got sand on my Game Boy Advance, so I promptly washed it off in the ocean. Probably a tie between when he announced he was going to play Plastic Ghost and pulled a plastic bag over his head, or when he refuses to drink water or blow his nose when he has a cold. When told both of those things help him breathe, his response is always, no breathing. I hate breathing. Which Plastic Ghost would seem to substantiate. My daughter was trying to look over the fence in our yard, so she climbed on top of
Wait, what? Why can't I use it? The fuck?
Immediately adjacent to the aquarium was a stepladder. Our kids were probably 10 and 6. We are at a restaurant and they both order hot chocolate. Our drinks come. Both my wife and I are putting our straws in our own drinks and not paying attention. Both of the children simultaneously stick straws into the steaming hot chocolate and take huge drinks, and start freaking out. My son was 15 at the time and decided he wanted to make pancakes. So, he also decided to use the plastic food cover for the microwave as a mixing bowl. Now if you haven't used one of these, it's full of holes on the top to let steam out and protect your microwave interior from splatters. Well, I come downstairs and he's mad as heck. There is pancake batter all over the countertop and he's huffing and puffing. This is the worst mixing bowl I've ever seen. Who puts holes in the bottom of a
Stop touching it. Just stop touching it. Stop touching it. Stop touching it. Stop touching it.
Please, and walked out. I was really worried that he was developing dementia or something. My daughter tested as gifted, then got into the bathtub with her socks on that night. A true intellectual. My 2 kids asked me for bananas for their school lunches. So Monday I bought 4 bananas. On Friday all the banana was still there, so I asked why they didn't eat them. They both swore that they ate a banana every day. It must have been the other kid who didn't eat their banana, as if I can't count to 4. They are 12 and 13. This happened 2 weeks ago. I was the stupid kid. I was at my cousin's above ground pool when I was around 5 and there was a bumblebee sitting on the deck. My mom saw it and said go around it. I proceeded to step on it and get stung. I think my little brain said jump over it and instead I jumped on it. A bee lost its life that day. When I was about 6 I was at a friend's house and sat on a cactus by mistake. Until I was 12. I thought the first month of the year was September because that's when school started. Not my kid, but myself. I shoved a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into a VCR slot when I was like 9. Then I tried to reach inside to fish it out. I was stuck with my hand in the slot up to my wrist until my mom got home from work a couple hours later. I don't know why I did it, but we no longer had a VCR player after that. One time when I was half asleep as a kid I got out of bed to go to the toilet, but instead of turning left into the bathroom I turned right and peed down the stairs. Me too, I used to end up peeing in the kitchen trash can. My grandfather ended up coming into the kitchen to see what I was doing and I just looked up at him asking what's wrong as I rubbed my eye. It was fun to wake up in the middle of the night and do things wrong. My sister lost their dog and actually had it cremated. It sits in a locked box on her dresser. One day her 4-year-old knocked over a lamp. He said the dog came out of the box and knocked it over. He doesn't quite understand the concept of death yet. So I'm gonna point out my own stupidity. I had to read your first sentence twice because I couldn't figure out how she cremated a dog she couldn't find. Once when my nephew was around 3 years old we were eating breakfast when he asked if he could go play. I told him to eat 2 more bites of bacon and he could get down. He said he couldn't because then his muscles would get too big and be too heavy. Good answer, kid. therapists over it. What is the number one thing parents did to screw up their kids so they had to seek help in adulthood? Behavioral therapist here. Catch your kids being good. Parents are always telling kids what they did wrong. You have to balance it out by telling them what they are doing right.
Move, bitch.
Yes, this goes for educators too. Make sure kids don't end up being the bad kids because all you do is pick up on their disruptive behavior. Teaching them that failure is unacceptable, a sign of laziness, or that they just didn't want it enough. It results in people who can't take no for an answer or stay at terrible situations because that's what they've chosen, so they have to make it work. Therapist here. LMFT. Probably the biggest and most common frick up I see is parents shaming their child for having their own identity and personal interests separate from the parent. Just support your kid and don't try to force them to be someone they're not. Don't call them weird or tell them their likes are stupid. Show interest in the things they like and let them teach you about those things. Also, don't take it personally if your child is not an exact replica of you. Kids are human, and like all humans, despite all our similarities, there are vast differences as well.
What's wrong with you?
Learn to celebrate and value those differences, or everyone can be miserable. May the child take care of the parent's emotions. It's supposed
What percentage your
to be
phone
the
at?
way around. You control your sadness, anger, disappointment. Don't make your kid anticipate your emotional response and work to regulate you. Therapist here also. I see a number of teens, and some of the things I have noticed in the population.
Oh my god, stop fucking missing. Like, what is you doing?
Parents failing to keep their promises.
90% accuracy and always
repeating
missing.
the promises and never fulfill them. When your child does something wrong, don't sweep it under the carpet.
Might as well just be zero.
Aggressive or stonewalling. Not trusting.
Might as well just be another
always in
freaking
helicopter mode. Not validating their feelings. Hey, it is okay, you are
magnet.
angry.
Great.
Anger is an emotion. Your kids have the right to feel that. This also goes for not encouraging them to discuss their emotions.
Stop touching the shit.
Not apologizing when you should. You are a human as much as your child, irrespective of how old he or she is. When you are in the wrong, say sorry and talk about what you can do differently next time. You are setting a positive model for your child. Please remember, lack of communication. I cannot even emphasize enough how many teens I see or clients in general lack communication skills.
I don't think Wobbuffet could hurt me, so I'm not gonna attack it yet.
Inconsistencies. Poor kiddo never knows how to react because
My
he
God.
doesn't get a consistent response. What's more terrifying than a father who is always angry is a father who is sometimes angry and you never know when. Ignoring a child's emotional life by scolding them for having one or telling them to suck it up. It's remarkable the amount of clients I see that need to learn that having feelings is okay and not a cause for alarm or punishment. Constant invalidation. You shouldn't feel sad. You are being too hyper and that is why you are being punished. Seems innocent enough even without context. Shouldn't feel sad is a problematic statement though. People feel what they feel no matter the context. So you need to talk to your child. Why are you sad?
I meant to use Thunderbolt. Oh my god.
Timeout won't last forever. You only have 1 minute left. I still love you, blah blah blah. Whatever works for your family.
Coulda killed it.
But children need to be able to appropriately label their feelings from a young age. I am sad because I didn't get what I wanted. I can do better in the future and maybe get what I want. Boom. I'm out of a job.
I'm used to it. Fuck. I'm used to it.
Parents who cannot do this.
Pikachu.
They cannot teach their children to do it either.
Why are you always
I used to
coming here
work
when I'm
as a
streaming?
counselor. The thing that stood out the most to me was the number of people, usually women and the oldest female sibling, who were saddled with the leftover parenting duties the actual parent couldn't handle. Whether it was babysitting all the time, being the parent's shoulder to cry on, being responsible for all of the housework, dealing with the financial burden of raising a family. This led to wonderful, smart young women who were so used to caring for everyone else, being the rock that their teenage years' childhoods were essentially non-existent.
I thought Miracle was only for special types.
Suffered as a result. From memory, it's called
It's not
parentification,
fair.
and it is incredibly unfair young people find themselves in this type of situation. I was the oldest of 4. There was more, but the hardest part about parentification is also feeling unseen or the idea that your needs can get taken care of later after everyone else's, and guess what?
That's pretty much
Later never
overkill.
comes. It'll get buried, but I'm a psychologist and my answer is shame. Making them feel ashamed as a disciplinary technique is one of those things that can blow up a minor issue into something that really sticks with you. Worse still when it's concerning puberty and biological processes. Worse even still when it's concerning things the child can't help. Therapist here. Not being emotionally available to the child. The child needs love, recognition and the feeling of security. Even good parents who are unable to be emotional available or show feelings can negatively impact the child. Not only will the child not have their feelings responded to or reciprocated, leading to more dysfunctional coping mechanisms, they won't have the blueprint of how to soothe themselves or their own children in time, perpetuating the experience. Clinical psychologist here. Failing to show proper range of different levels of emotions. A lot of parents only show their emotions when they explode or flow over with emotions. I see a lot of patients who only saw outburst, 10 out of 10, or total avoidance of emotions, 0 out of 10. But they never saw their parents be sad or angry on a level 4 or 6. Basically show
Yo,
anger or fear in
what
a
the
normal
fuck
way.
happened?
Actual children's therapist here. I had a client's parents drop services because they had gotten an intro to psychology book and the client was already 7. It's too late for them, it's past their critical development period. Parents asking where the 20% is when you got 80%, like never being good enough. My therapist has been making me realize my dad and stepmom don't validate my emotions and has been trying to teach them how to. It's crazy because I never really noticed it before really. If I get upset about something my dad would always be like, don't get upset or you don't need to cry, stuff like that. I would highly recommend the book Running on Empty. It's about all the stuff that was supposed to happen that didn't. I had the same feeling. Like, oh, I had no idea anything was missing. I wish more attention would be paid to emotional neglect. Teacher here. My best advice is only have kids if you want kids. If you treat your kids poorly, doesn't matter the reason, they learn poor treatment. Treat you kids like you love them.
Dude, should you get bad?
Believe or support a child who has experienced physical abuse, debauchery or blamed the child for their experience, or any other personal trauma. Really, divorced parents who badmouth the other parent in front of the child are essentially telling the child that
Be
50%
right back.
of the child is hated. I'm a family
Hello?
therapist, and scapegoating is what I see as the most long-lasting for any kid.
Why did you use audio?
And everyone is essentially doing similar things you're doing.
It's not.
But you are 100% blamed for the dysfunction. It
Mm-hmm.
makes kids feel worthless and have a long-lasting complex of not being good enough as they essentially try to appease parents that just won't ever see their value. Not a therapist, but speaking from experience. If you ignore the signs of your child's obvious neurological cognitive disorders because you don't want to have to change your own daily routine to accommodate for your child's needs and or because you don't want to be seen as those parents with a special kid, then congratulations. You didn't have to be the parents with the special kid. Now you have to be the parents with a special adult who still lives in your house and will require daily care for the rest of their life for conditions you failed to treat in the formative years. Thank you and have a nice day. My mom was a teacher and there was a little girl with developmental problems in the class. She
Yes, I call you back. Call you back.
refused to let their daughter learn
I'll call you
sign
back.
language because they thought it would make her look retarded. Instead, they made her wear a talk box around her neck and she would push the buttons to say I need bathroom. Pretty despicable. Not a therapist but close friends foster children.
Axe.
Their mom had 2 kids, boy 1 and girl 3. She didn't
This
treat
fucking
them at all.
Pokemon
So
used
when they came to my friend's
Rain
family,
Dance after I
they
used
would
fucking
always
Sunny
gorge on
Day.
food and eat anything and everything that came their way because they were never sure about where and when their next meal was going
What
to
you
come
mean?
from. One
It read
time,
my attack.
she caught a boy sneaking around the kitchen
I
making
mean,
himself a bowl of cereal without anyone around because he didn't want anyone else to share it. It's extremely sad to see because they're such
oh
sweet
my
kids
God.
but become feral around
In the fantasy, or moon life becomes an treat.
medicine to fix mental health issues for
Yeah.
fuck's sake. Frick you, mom.
How you been feeling?
Yes, I've been going to therapy for 5 or 6 years and my mom keeps getting mad because the grounding techniques my
Stressed and
therapist
sad.
gives me for anxiety attacks
This is
don't
pretty
cure
calm,
my anxiety.
Stressed
The
me.
doctor recommended medication and she said no BC
Is it still about
therapy
that boy?
solves all mental health
No,
problems.
oh, that's what stressed me out.
emotionally invalidating your
I was
children.
I was getting a haircut yesterday.
Child comes running up to mommy screaming with a minor cut.
I had to hold back
It
tears.
hurts.
I wasn't really doing it.
No, it doesn't. You're okay.
Wait, so you got a haircut?
Keep playing.
Yeah.
The
my
shops
dad-
are open?
My dad cut.
Oh.
I mean,
the child
they are open.
tell you something
My dad
important to them and you told them it
Wait, so
wasn't.
shops are
This
open.
enforces the idea that you won't listen and eventually that
You do
child
know
I think, like,
angry, sullen,
how lucky you
started,
are.
starting like Wednesday or Thursday.
Psychologist here. The one I've seen
We have to wear a mask. Or if we don't wear a mask, we're going to get like $1,000 fine.
Acceptable and
$1,000 fine or like
drink at least
jail time.
Mhm.
Sometimes.
I want to see what
during
the
the formation and the womb
I don't
and
have a
until
mask.
death.
My dad told me to go. He was like, he wanted me to go look for a job. I was supposed to apply to like the Air Force like a month. I think like last month, sometime last month. And I didn't do it because
they were humiliated.
So he was like,
by drunk parents
you don't understand.
feeling of lacking
And then I don't have any money in the first place, so
emotional
I might as well. I might as well get a job.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm not looking for a job, but I'm not really gonna go look or whatever. I mean, I'm gonna go look, but like, I already know what they're gonna tell me. They're gonna tell me go online or some shit.
They always tell you go online, the fuck? I don't know why parents
He
think
wants me to
that.
go there in person and like introduce myself and shit. Which like I've already done that with some business, but like I just gotta be more persistent. Like answer the phone. So I'm gonna walk around outside for like an hour or some shit. I'm gonna go back inside.
It doesn't. I wish parents would realize that that shit doesn't work. Like, they're not gonna care. They're not gonna care.
But anyways, yeah. Oh, that's my plan. That's my plan. That's why it sounds like I'm outside.
Is that where you're heading right now?
I'm about to walk around right now. I don't know where I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna figure this shit out one step at a time.
Very
I
excited.
kind of want to go. I kind of want to go slide down on water. We're gonna see what this goes. But yeah,
this one really messed me up.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Took years to even be able to label my emotions, let alone
They
tell
are.
someone else about them.
I don't know. They're kind of stressful.
Therapist here.
This other thing is on my show.
I come across as enabling children.
Right.
Some parents have the ability to actually
I understand.
make excuses or reasons for every challenging behavior and place blame on other people.
Do
They
I
are
want
more
to go?
interested in being seen as friends
I don't
with
know.
their kids than
I
actually
could go like
parenting
one
and
place,
seeing that their children are
wait
learning
there for like
making
an hour.
mistakes. It creates
Or
a type of child that is
I could actually walk around
unwilling
hot
to be
as shit.
accountable or try anything outside of their comfort zone. I
Yeah.
fear adulthood for these
I know.
kids. Psychologist here, bringing an abusive new
How
partner
are you
into the
in
child or teen's
your life?
and then choosing
I
the
came here talking
partner
about
over the kids.
I would call
Second
Jacob
place,
for that.
not repairing by a
So you
partner
use
or making
Jacob
mistakes as a parent.
I
for.
don't use Jacob.
Parents of ridiculous.
Oh, so
I don't
you.
use Jacob.
Weird flex, but it came moment
You
The
say.
only time I've ever called Jacob
when my kids
to
were
talk
potty
talk
trained,
about my
he
feelings,
was in a phase
was
where
like
he loved
one time.
temporary tattoos.
And I was like,
He used
I think that was like a month or two before I broke up with before me and
He got so
last
he
girl
was
broke
covered on
up.
both arms, back and chest. We
That was the only time I talked to Jacob
lived
about my
in
feelings.
Seattle until one summer day we took him to the wading pool.
And you know what's
One of the
funny?
first times in
What?
public. We took his
I was gonna
shirt
call
off
him and like tell him
and
that we
strode
broke
out
up
into
because he
the
still
pool
thinks
with
I'm
his
dating that girl.
toddlers, and Thomas the Tank
Why did you tell him you
Travis,
broke up?
looking like he had just finished a hard
Why didn't I
set
tell
of
him?
reps
I
of
think
the
I told him
free weights in the
and he
prison.
wasn't listening.
You want
I
to
just
know
continued
why
the
I
joke
got
of that we were
trapped?
dating
Choo-choo
in head.
When my
Okay.
son was about 2.5,
Funny.
we thought it would be a
And
good
then I
idea
realized
to
like
start
I
potty
should probably
training
stop
him.
doing that
We sat him down,
because like
talked to him, explaining to him
Eh.
that if he poops in the potty, he can a reward. He was
I
less
should
than
probably stop
thrilled.
telling.
It was
Yeah,
pretty clear he was not interested. We start the process of putting
She's
him
been
on the
confused for
potty
like
every
8
morning
turns.
at
Like, what the
regular
fuck?
intervals. It's set
We're still
up.
playing Dungeon?
After 2 days, he hasn't done anything on the potty.
I'm playing
The added bonus of not having any bowel movements.
fucking Colosseum.
This kid was regular.
You said-
After 4 days, we begin to panic. Prune juice, oatmeal, apple juice, anything
I don't
to
want to
get
lose
him
my
to
money
poop.
until
At day 5, we are at the DRS,
I'm like, why
who
not?
tells us to use suppositories. You
Oh.
guys, we gave him suppositories for 3 nights. Still nothing. Day 10 rolls around and we're thinking it's time for the hospital.
Oh, I'm across.
He's got a blockage.
I'm gonna go
He's
across the
sick.
street.
Something is seriously wrong
But
here.
yeah,
Take him to the doctor.
I was gonna do that.
One last time before
But you ain't
the
answering.
hospital.
If
This
you calls
time
me later,
we
I'm
see
probably
a
not
different
answering.
doctor who looks
But
at
yeah.
Why?
asks
Why not
if
answer
the
your
doctor
friend's
says
calls?
yes.
The fuck?
We shake our heads yes, wondering why it
there's
matters.
a rule.
Since he hasn't even
There's a
cried
rule.
for 10 days.
Nigga, what
He
rule?
needs a diaper.
If I call you and you don't answer,
smiles and says, "Well,
you're dead to me. I'm kidding.
Are you serious?
It's a joke.
To hold his bowel movements, and that when he was ready to be potty trained, he would let us know.
Oh, yeah.
Skeptical, but willing to give it a shot. Instead of the hospital, we went back.
Through it.
We made a big show of putting the potty chair up, and told him that if he pooped, he could have any toy in Target.
It's not real. It's just like how I feel.
No more potty training.
Oh my god.
Later, he took the biggest crap
I'm tired of multitasking with this fucking game. It's stressing me out.
Me like, you know, like a time of day, like when you're like drained and you're laying down and you don't want to move.
Says I want to go potty.
Yeah.
You know, that's usually when
I was expecting you to find a stash of poop somewhere, like he had.
Damn, what if he's going through something? What if he on the verge of you know what?
3. Can poop in the
Jacob going through. What will this man be going?
What if he is though?
He's not. You want me to tell you how? I'm gonna tell you how.
How?
I'm gonna do anything.
How?
Text me. Like, hey bro, I really thought.
Sprayed her with the water house.
He called you twice every time.
It was a spectacular scene.
You said twice.
I said he would call me twice.
Oh.
Used to have a tricycle that had a little bucket.
What do you do when you talk to him? All of them. How many times?
800.
Exactly. And Jake was like, I don't really see any problems arising unless he gets kicked out or something. But like,
Kicked out for what?
Why no fist bump my kid? 5 at the time.
Just living in his aunt's house, living with his grandmother at his aunt's house, and she was like, she's really big on people going to college. That's why she let him stay there or whatever. And
He doesn't want to go to college?
he dropped out of college.
He dropped out and didn't tell them?
I mean, he eventually told.
Oh.
You never know. One day she may come up with the epiphany and she's like, yeah, Jacob, you need to go, you know?
She said that?
I said maybe that she might come up with an epiphany.
Oh.
She has more family, but they're just changing living conditions.
My son was at a well child checkup, and when asked about his eating habits, he told her, "I think I eat too many vegetables."
Oh my god, this fucking Raikou.
He doesn't have an SO. He doesn't have those problems.
I got to dong he had a mullet.
But how do you know though?
I talked to him. Like,
Just because you talk to him doesn't mean he's telling you everything. He could be going through something you wouldn't know and you just blowing him off like he's some weirdo.
I don't blow him off.
I think I'm a man now. My kid, 5, is obsessed with cars. Lives and breaths.
I don't blow Jacob off.
He's driving.
Oh my god, this fucking Raikou is actually getting my nerves.
Wow, you're amazing. Kiddo and
We talk.
We could talk about this, we could talk.
Time, right?
I know I'm a better driver than
Right.
most of the grown-ups. I know.
Yeah.
Stop.
He's honestly not wrong.
Stop trying to make it sound.
He told me I don't need
Okay, I'm
history
putting him off.
classes because I know that Hitler
Yes,
got
I
shot
use
in
it.
the balls.
I wasn't saying that, I was just saying.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Some days I do. Some days I'll be
When my
chilling.
son was potty training,
And
I started letting him
he'll
do
call.
it.
I just wouldn't
I'd
answer.
have to finish. After
Like-
a bit of this, he figured he was pretty well good to go on his own.
Friends
And he
bring a
was
certain
very
negative.
good about it. So
They
for
talk.
the next couple of weeks,
You're-
he'd do
It's
this
not even
thing,
concerning
which
them.
always included stripping naked, then come running out to wherever I was, bend over with his
I
cheeks
check on him
spread,
every now and then.
shout hey.
I was gonna talk to him
I
earlier,
went
but
back all by myself.
didn't answer the phone.
Mine can't do this.
He's got a
so
problem
she
and called me
comes
at,
out
like,
and bends over with her crap
11 o'clock
ass
at night.
ready for me to wipe. There are
This
lots of
Raikou is
members of our
spamming.
family tree.
I already got
Probably
other
the
shit to
biggest
deal with.
one, don't you think? My daughter.
I gotta get my money. Fuck no.
She is an identical twin.
We got money you trying to share?
Of a weird flex.
Bitch, I have $8.
My 2-year-old
Correction.
son woke up, so I
About
went
to have like
change him.
$11.
I pulled his jammy pants off, then went to undo
That's
the
$4 more
belt.
in my
The whole
pocket.
time he has this look on his face like he's waiting
Yo,
for
why is
something.
Thunder missing so much? I feel so bad for this Raikou.
He's got a
I
dog.
kinda wanna put
He
buy
even
some double
smiled
shot.
big and threw his
Okay.
arms up at the moment of reveal, like Tay-da-a-a-a-a. When I wasn't appropriately amazed and merely continued with changing him, he pointed at it and said, loudly and forcefully, "That's
Oh my
not
god, catch the
yes,
bitch. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Congratulations. I'm definitely gonna try this move
You playing
tonight.
Dungeon?
My wife
I
will
literally
be
just told you I
waiting.
was playing.
My 8-year-old son's doctor was trying to make him
You don't listen to me, Mel. Like, you actually don't. I named a whole Pokemon after you. You're not gonna listen to me.
Finally, the doctor said he was
Oh, you're
trying
playing
for a
on
lollipop.
Colosseum.
Yes,
Son said he would not
my
give up
nigga.
his but wanted the lollipop. The doctor said, "What? That is not a fair trade.
For
What will you
Vivian?
give me for the lollipop?" My son answered, "Dead serious. I get the lollipop and you get my respect." Damn. Not a parent, but I teach swimming
Need a
lessons.
fucking heal.
This 5-year-old first day of lessons was like, "I'm not
Baby's
very
first
good at
thunder.
swimming." So I said, "That's okay. Nobody is perfect at everything." Dead serious, he just goes, "No, I'm
I'm
perfect
going
at
ghost.
everything except kicking." Tonight, my 3-year-old stopped midway up
Oh my
the
god,
stairs,
catch.
turned
Please,
slowly to me
catch.
and said, "Mom,
Catch these hands.
I put on
No, you gonna catch these hands?
pants all by myself." Dot. I have no idea why he emphasized every word, but then he smirked and turned and kept climbing the stairs. Big day. The kid is really going places. My son let out a high-pitched screech while playing a video game. Told him, "Dude, knock it off." A few seconds later I heard him whisper, "It's my battle cry." Had an Amber Alert hit my phone one night while my then 6-year was playing a game on it. She asks what that was and I explained it's a message that gets sent
Finally, I
when
caught
a kid
Raikou.
gets kidnapped. She looks at it again and sees it's for a town over 2 hours from where we live. She then asks me why they sent her if it's so far away. I said because they want
It's a no
everyone to
cap.
look and find the kid. Wouldn't you want everyone to look if you got kidnapped? They want to find the kid so they don't get killed. She leans over close to my ear and whispers, "I'm very difficult to kill." Didn't see that coming, lol. Good story. Not my kid, but a friend of mine was trying to teach his daughter to pick up her toys when she was younger. When she didn't do it one time, he told her he was going to throw away everything that was still on the floor. She picked them up and put them in the
EM26.
trash
That's
and
probably
thought-
Thunder.
When my sister was younger, she told her teacher that my dad was a clown.
I'm surprised it
She
wasn't.
actually
Oh, it's
thought he was a
Earthquake.
body shop, but I guess she
Make
thought
my
he was a pretty
Earthquake.
funny. Apparently, the parent-teacher conference.
Why does
was
Mantine learn
hilarious.
Earthquake? It's a
Your
flying
daughter
type.
tells
That's
us
so
you're a
weird.
clown? What an interesting career. My friend's mom would say, "Gotta fly every
I'm bleeding
morning when
dead.
she dropped my friend off at daycare." I decided, quite logically, that she
So
was
what?
a pilot. Absolutely nothing my parents told me would change my mind.
Tired?
She worked in a
Where you
prop
tired
shop.
from?
I was playing cops and robbers with my son and
I feel
my
you.
niece, both about
Tired
3
of
at
dealing
the
with shit?
time. They put me
I
in the
actually
jail,
get
the sofa, and proceeded to walk out of the room. As she's exiting, my niece turns to
You
me
like
with a
content,
deadpan face and goes,
yeah.
"Watch your back,"
They're the
and
only
just
people
leaves. I would take her
like that.
advice.
I got me finishing.
My son,
Join
for a
them.
Hey,
time,
kitty.
was, I guess, trying to
Join them.
impress the 6-year-old
Oh.
neighbor girl. He
Which
leaned
you
over
did
me
before.
on his arm and said, "I have lots of
never
accidents."
I thought you
PM
did.
accidents. I hope
I've
for his
never
sake his
smoked
pickup
in my life.
lines improve.
I could have sworn you tried
So I
something.
heard you're into bad boys.
I've had
I ran
alcohol.
around
Okay,
telling
that's what I
everyone
was
I
referring
was the
to.
most
Never
beautiful
mind.
girl in the world. I
I've never
even told
smoked.
my mom's friend that Shirley
Never
Temple was
smoked.
almost as cute as me.
Never done
Used
pills.
up all my confidence at 3.
Oh,
I
I've
was
done like
throwing
pills.
my nieces in the pool and the 4-year-old
I never done
grabbed the
heroin.
pool noodle and looked
Crack.
right at me to say,
Not
"Today,
yet.
you're gonna get hurt." That's when you muster up all your
Dude,
uncle's
if
strength
I
and
keep
throw
fucking
her
around
in the
with
pool extra hard.
people, I fuck around. Probably.
My
Not
6-year-old
yet.
son
Shit.
recently put his
Probably.
foot down, letting me know it was not okay for me to tell him what he could
We're
wear or
dealing with
not
y'all.
because he is allowed to have his own
Who's
style.
y'all?
Okay,
Y'all.
fine.
Who's
Shorts,
y'all?
sandals, and
I didn't do
white
shit
y'all.
to you.
I contemplated
Ah,
having
yes.
a button made that said I dressed
You're
myself
coming at
today
me
for
with
my children to
for
proudly
another
wear.
argument.
Them not realizing
Nigga,
it was
you
rosy
start
so
these
everyone
arguments.
else would
I'm
stop
not
judging
all
me
for
for
that
my
shit.
kids' fashion
You
choices.
start these
Someday.
arguments.
Katie,
No, I
you have
don't.
to eat
You
3
really
meals
Okay, I
do.
started the way
before
yesterday.
you're
It's because it's something you originally
No,
brought up.
no more. 3
Don't say it
more.
on stream.
I'm gonna eat 4 more.
Oh, you're
Oh,
on
no,
stream?
you got me
Yes.
good.
Why you think
My
I'm playing
son
You didn't text
Pokemon?
me this time, so that's
Me.
cool.
Okay, mate.
I don't know.
5 minutes till you have to hop out of the bath.
But yeah,
Son, no. 3 minutes. Righto.
I'm at like
My
a
son was
crossroad.
in the tub and asked
A
exactly
crossroads?
how
I
old
don't
he
know.
was. Me.
What do you mean?
About 4 years, 10 months, and 4 days. After a few
I don't
moments
know.
of deep thought, I heard him say quietly and reverently
Not like a
to
point
himself,
for like,
"Collar, and I haven't been bit by a single wild animal. Oh man. Still kills me."
this shit.
When I was 6, my absent father
I don't know
came
what
back
to do
into
about
my life briefly and I paraded him
Mhm.
around all of my friends bragging,
Like,
saying, "This is my dad."
usually-
I bet you thought I didn't have a dad, but
I would
did.
just
He was
ditch
gone
the
again
bird.
within a month. Oh, man.
Usually.
Kids really want a dad, don't they?
But
Sassy
I've
Lace
never
after
really
first day in school. I
like
learned
feel
how to
like
count to 11 today.
like
I bet
semi
you can't
helpful.
weird
Who's like
fact,
helpful to that degree.
wait, I
Also
indeed
really
cannot
stressful
count to
sometimes.
11.
I never really ran
11
into
is a
someone
fancy
like
way
that.
of saying 110.
And
I flipped
I've been
mine
recently
after Bird
being
telling
told
her it was
like
okay because I
don't
still had
like
my thumb up and
don't
out.
disregard certain aspects of
My
your life.
10-month-old son
And
hates
I don't know
being
what
chased.
aspects of like, my life
Recently, he figured out that if he grabs his
that
balls
it's
in a death
referring to.
grip with one of his hands, it makes it impossible to get the diaper on him. I die a little inside every time he does this. If you haven't already tried it, warming up the wipes will sometimes stop diaper.
We never know anything.
My 3.5-year-old outside the
I
other
usually
day,
have like a
he
sense
was stabbing
of
the
talking
ground
about.
with a stick. I asked,
I
"What
guess
you're
it could
up
be
to,
that person.
buddy?"
I'm not
"I'm
sure.
digging holes for the ants to
Or it
climb
could be something
into."
else.
That's so
There's like
sweet of me, Mom. He's
three
a
or four
nut.
possibilities.
I like that he knows
Good thing
his
that's a
worth and
Pokemon Center.
practices positive self-talk. My nephew is 4 and thinks he's cooler than everyone else because he can tuck in his
I
shoes
don't know.
by
I'll figure it out.
himself.
Actually,
My
I think we're all
3-year-old
trying to
said
figure
to me
ourselves
the other
out.
day, "Mom, I feel, and I don't feel, like some profound genius."
I know for a
My
fact
9-year-old talks in oxymorons. He'll say things like it's cold
I'm not gonna
outside
date
but
them.
kind of hot. And
You
I
said
don't
what?
like it but I kind of do.
I know
It
for a
drives
fact
me
I'm
up the
not gonna
wall.
date.
My 10-year-old son bragged the other day that his hair looked like Martin Freeman's. Question mark, what the freak?
I don't have the energy.
While babysitting my cousin, she got really close
the
to me
energy.
and smelled like rotten eggs.
Why do you
So
still
I
talk
asked
to
her if
them?
she farted and she immediately replied, "No, that's my proof." At least she's self-aware. Your story
Wait.
Have you ever talked to
reminded me
someone?
of the time my niece
Have you
had
ever talked to
audible
someone
fart
and
and
like
I asked her if she farted and she replied,
it kind of
"No."
reminded you
It
like of
smells
an
like
older you,
Froud up sniffs the air a few
like
times. Yes, someone Froud
you
up.
from the past, right?
Not a kid,
Wait,
but when I was
an older
5,
me? What do you
I
mean?
had a mad crush on the
Like
20-year
you before like
daughter of this wealthy
your ass got
family
like
friend
hit
of
by like 5
ours. I
trucks
had asked for her hand in
in the
marriage
heart.
and she agreed willingly. Playful to her but fully serious
That
on
you?
my part. She was carrying her soon-to-be groom when her mother confronted me. "You need to have
Sure.
money
And like
if you
I thought it
want
was
to
like
marry
tripping.
my daughter." I looked right into her eyes and
Oh, it's
without
tripping?
missing a beat reached into my little
Oh,
pockets and tossed
I
her
was
a
still
penny.
talking to them.
Her face priceless. My smirk
So they
fell
remind
off.
me of
My
me.
game never peaked again.
Kinda like you
My
can see
son
like
was
certain
watching me
aspects.
cut down a
How
banana
they
Yeah.
remind me of me?
6 inches
Not
across,
you, but
very
yourself.
small, and the following
Dating
occurred.
talking to
Son.
somebody.
Oh,
I've never seen someone cut
you
down
dating
such
someone
a
who's
fat
like
before.
you?
Me.
Who was?
I mean,
Was
you've only seen
I was
one
once
person
like
cut
that's
down a tree
more
so far,
probably.
but you've only been alive for
Okay.
5 years. So give it time.
And like
Son,
I thought it was tripping.
excuse me, I've been
I
alive
felt like
much
like
longer than
they
that.
were trying to
Me.
convince me that I'm
Oh,
tripping.
how long
Forever or
have you
something.
been alive then?
Mm-hmm.
And
Son, 10,000 years.
I was kind of see their point.
No, I actually don't do
But, like,
that. He's a treasure.
I don't know.
Plot
It's like
twist. Your son has spent 10,000 years living
that's why I
with
don't know if I'm gonna
blind
get rid of
people,
them.
and this is his first
I don't
reincarnation
know. I'm
where
gonna.
he has vision. My little boy is extremely proud of his ability to get the automatic soap foam dispenser to form a shaped form on his hand. He should be proud. That takes a tremendous amount of skill to
I don't know.
do. When my
I
son
honestly
was
don't know
5,
if you.
a waitress at Applebee's asked him how old he was, to which he exclaimed, "I'm 5 and I pooped today." I think everyone with
You know what I'm gonna
him
watch it? I'm gonna watch the
was
Kroger.
very impressed.
That's the only place
How
I'm
my
gonna
dad
go in
took
person.
my daughter out to eat once when she was 2 and the
That's
server
a far
asked
as
if she
well.
was ready for ice cream and she said no. "I have a poop coming." He just said,
But yeah, I don't know.
"More room for ice
I'm
cream,"
not gonna
then, which
do
I
them.
think was pretty dope for someone being
You
paid
can.
basically nothing to work at Applebee's.
That's like the only person
Not
I don't know
bad,
is
when
you.
I was little, I had a child
Beat, boot,
therapist and I
bada
told
bing,
her
beat,
very
bop,
happily and even
boot.
bragging,
And I
that
can't
I
be like
was
my
only
normal
8
self.
years old and I already
They
had a
think
training
I'm
bra
too
and
mean.
I remember her
I
just
don't know.
looking at me for a while and
I really
going,
don't know.
"Okay. UHH
How do you mean?
Mose 22R2, now let's get
I don't know,
back
like.
on topic about therapy."
Alright, so I can give you
I'm
like
a
5
child
examples.
here,
So they'll
but when
call
I
me,
was maybe 3 or 4,
and like there was
I
like one
took a
time
dump that was
they
green,
called me,
which
right?
was quite
And
exciting to me
I thought it
at
was
the
you
time.
calling me.
I went and told my
And you know
mom,
how like I
"I
answer them
just had a poop that was
jokingly
green," and she
sometimes, so I'll
just
be like,
told
oh,
me
it's
next
you.
time make me
You
a
would be like,
blue one.
you wouldn't really
The
say
rare
anything about it.
reverse
You'd be like,
flex.
yeah, it's me. Who else would
When
it be?
my daughter
It's
was,
that.
I think,
Yes.
So
we were
I
in
said
the
that to
pool
them,
throwing a beach
thinking it
ball
was you.
around. I tossed
They're
a
like, that's
puppy.
me.
She catches
But
it,
like,
then says to me,
I
"Is
don't know,
that
like
all you
things
got,
that
old
things that like I
bastard?"
would feel
Not
like
bad.
no one would
That's
take
when you
like that
fucking smack
seriously.
it as hard as you
They
can
take
at
it
her
like kind
little
of seriously.
face. My
Like,
daughter told me she is made out of love, which I have
like,
told her before, and that means
I gotta
she
think
is
of an example.
invincible,
But
and so I
I don't know. A
can't
lot
hold
of
her
things I
hand
do they
whilst
think
she
are
walks on the
me.
water, which
You
I
know,
have not told
I
her.
feel like they're
This
sensitive,
one
but
took me a minute. I assume you're referring to some sort of garden wall or something. But I was picturing
I
her
don't know. This
defying
thing I
gravity
really.
in the living room. And really, if she can do that, she probably doesn't need her handheld.
You
I'm
think
going
you're
to tell
overly
you the truth.
sensitive?
Parents, what's
I
the
think,
weirdest
yeah,
thing you've come home
a little
to
bit.
find the babysitter
I told
doing?
them that.
I came home to find the babysitter had left.
I
One
can talk
kid
to like,
was 2 and
I
the
talk to
other
like
was
most
6
of my
months
friends.
old.
Pretty much the
Fortunately,
same.
they were asleep, but I
And you
still
give me,
couldn't believe
you're
it.
like one of them. You give me like the same
Kind of
energy.
opposite. The
Like you'll
parents
curse me
came
out. You'll be
home
like,
to me taking a
the fuck
picture
you
of
think
the
you talking to
refrigerator.
me?
The husband and his
I remember when my mom walked in on that
falling
jelly guy.
neglected letters and forgot about it until they saw
She was watching me
Like,
yell.
the better move
No, she
would
wasn't
be to
watching. She
rearrange
walked
the
in on
letters
it.
to say
Oh.
something
Like
just
when I was like
slightly
when I was
different.
finished irritating you, she walked in the door of the house.
Once Eva was like 13 and babysitting.
She didn't say anything about it, so you know, I'm gonna just assume she didn't hear
to
me.
make the kids dinner. Unfortunately,
But yeah.
I didn't notice that.
And then I have like other friends that I do the same thing with.
Plastic bowls. But needless to say, that was a bad.
I literally
move
call
on
my friend a
part.
flat chested,
We had a friend's daughter
no
looking after
nipple,
the kids
no
for the
butt,
first time, and when we got home,
Jack of
she
being
had
self built
reorganized
bitch.
almost
Oh my
everything.
gosh.
She didn't get offended.
Not just
She
the
didn't get.
shelf or two.
She said,
Like
"Hi,
anything
Mel.
after she left.
What's up?"
My wife and I spent quite a bit of time walking around.
That's my friend
finding
Kaya.
everything she had been into. The kitchen was completely reordered. Closets had different things in them. All of my CDs.
Should probably go in that side.
DVDs,
There's
etc.
mushrooms going
I was
over
very
here. What
anal
the
about
fuck?
how that stuff was organized back
But
then.
yeah.
What
You should get the mushroom haircut.
There wasn't a particular obvious pattern to
But
what
yeah.
she'd done either. No clear
Yeah.
system
I
that
don't
made
know.
sense to
I feel like they're over the
just
top.
random, unintuitive changes. It was super creepy. We never called her again. She had bought her laptop and had been doing a striptease on
I don't know.
working 2 jobs at the same time.
Like, if you,
When
like,
I was
look at my
8 years
Discord
old,
history,
my parents went
and you
out
looked at the
together.
chat,
They left me and my sister, 5,
it's just,
with a
I don't
babysitter
know.
who happened to be my
I don't know.
friend's sister.
I don't know
We
what to say
were
about that
always
shit.
pretty self-controlled
just-
kids, so we were quietly
I
playing with our toys and having a good
don't
time.
know. I be
The
chilling.
babysitter was only really
Yeah,
there
you just be
to
chilling,
ensure
right?
we
You just
didn't
be
have
chilling,
to
not doing.
Bro, it's kind of
You're
shit.
never in the wrong,
She wanted
right?
to be more involved.
I'm not gonna say I'm
At
never in the
about
wrong.
9 p.m. She screams for us.
There's
to
been
come
plenty of
to
times
the
I admitted I was in the wrong.
She then tells us that she saw a man outside wearing a mask
Not
and
perfect.
looking through the windows and tells us to get down and
There's
be
still things I
very
regret
quiet.
to this
I
day.
want to reiterate that
Like
I was
what?
8 years old and had a 5-year-old sister, and we were told the criminal was outside.
Are we talking about regarding them?
So we
I'm
get
talking about in
down on the
general.
floor, insanely scared.
I regret
We
how
were
I
there for
reacted
about 10 minutes when we
when
heard
me and
the
my best
door
friend stopped,
turn. My sister is silently
hating.
sobbing.
I regret that.
Then walking, asked what was
I regret.
So you're not friends anymore?
That girl again. That babysitter was a terrible person.
I don't know.
Long time babysitter here.
That's the reason I was
The
crying
kid's
yesterday.
Parents walked in on him licking carpet
To be
because
honest.
I dared him to.
I was taking a haircut.
They had a good laugh.
My dad was giving me a haircut.
When they
And like,
saw
I was thinking about all the memories I had with
This
him,
is
and I just
not
started
my
crying.
story.
Maybe it was because of that,
My good friend
or because of
has
the
a
music he was
very
playing,
rocky
or because of the
relationship
fact I was
with her
thirsty.
mother-in-law.
One of the two.
Not to the point
Or maybe
where
all
I
the
can't
above.
see her.
Or maybe
They
all
live
of the
in
above.
same
And I just
city,
started crying.
but definitely
Well,
bad
no.
enough that I hear
I held
no
in my
sane
tears, but like, you know, like
mother-in-law
you know the like
stories
singlets filter
every
come out.
way.
Mhm.
Way too attached to her
Yeah.
husband.
I was
In
trying
a
to like
couple
hold
of
those
umbilical
from
cord
coming
all
out, and they were
over.
still coming out.
So,
And I don't
when
cry
they
about my
had their
parents
son,
like
a
that.
lot of that was
Why didn't you
transferred
just
to the
cry
baby.
then?
Things like calling the baby
Because
by
I was
my
getting a
friend's
fucking haircut.
husband's name and saying
So?
things like you love grandma so
I don't cry
much
around my
more than
parents.
mommy and daddy.
I mean, I
Don't
have
you?
cried around my parents,
Just
but
a
like,
bit creepy and
I
irritating.
genuinely just
My
don't.
friend and her husband
I
went
cry.
out for supper
I do.
drinks when the
I-
baby was about 4
Okay.
months old, leaving the
I cry.
mother-in-law to babysit.
They haven't seen me cry.
They came home early because
I don't
my
do
friend
often.
twisted her ankle and everything was done.
But yeah,
No TV. No
I
books,
regret that.
nothing. They can hear the white
And
noise in their
you may be
son's
like,
room
hey, Jarmel,
and hear the
why don't you
rocking chair
text them?
squeaking
Why don't you
away.
swallow your pride and text them?
They go back to
I didn't
the
say
bed
that.
at night, not telling
Is that what
anyone
you're thinking?
or calling
No.
as they go. Thinking
If you're talking about the
possibly
nigga
a
like
night with
who's
the
bothering you,
baby.
don't text him.
Mother-in-law must be
No,
trying to
I'm
get him
talking
back
about
to
my
sleep.
my
The baby's door is open.
my original
The
girlfriend.
nightlight
Oh.
all was on, so they
I'm talking
could
about
see
the
into their son's
Asian,
room. And see
bald-headed
mother-in-law
Asian girl.
in the rocking
Why you
Maybe
call
like-
her bald-headed? Bald-headed.
Because she is.
and her breast
Because
in
she
the
is.
baby's mouth. The
She
baby was fast asleep.
I'm gonna post some videos of my
Crouched
friends
onto
later.
grandma's saggy boobs.
You can
Needless
send me
to
one.
say, friend
Mhm.
and hubby freak
I'll be like, I
out.
miss hanging out with my nigga.
Says she
God.
just
Anyway.
wanted the baby to love her.
Anyways,
They
so
kick her out of the house.
So,
And as my friend
yeah,
says,
if you were
have
thinking
years
that
of
towards that
cringe-worthy
person,
images in their heads to try
usually
and
you would be
put
right,
away.
but like
Tia,
I actually did like swallow my pride.
friends
Whatever
going
like
to
you
find
call my pride.
mother-in-law with
And I
nipple
texted
in
them. I was like,
baby's
hey,
mouth.
I miss my
This
best
just
friend.
scared
And they were
the
dry as
frick
texter,
out
so
of
you know.
me. You just described
You know the response like, "I miss you too" or some shit.
And it just
And
be,
then
oh,
like
okay.
we had like a
husband doesn't
like a
understand why I
conversation.
won't let his batchet mom watch
And I
our
don't know if
baby
like they
without
left
his
me on.
dad
I
around.
think they left me on
It
red.
doesn't help that she
I don't know if they texted
accidentally
me again
calls
because like
herself
after that my
mommy
phone
and
kind of like
husband
messed
daddy
up.
when talking
So
to the baby.
I'm gonna just assume
I'm creeped.
they left me on red. I was gonna
My
ask one of
dad
their
came
friends
home
what
to
I
my
should
older
do
sister crying and the
about like
on the porch smoking
my friend.
crack. Thankfully, he forgot something, so he
But that was
told her
yesterday
while
night.
on his
I
way
thought it
to
was just
work
too
that he
emotional to
knows
make
what would
decisions.
have happened.
I decided to just watch
Babysitter
YouTube
peed on
videos
my
and lay in my
parents'
bed.
carpet while she was watching
And
a
go to
movie
sleep.
with my sister.
It was like
When
2
I
o'clock in the
returned, I
morning.
had a babysitter who was awesome at pretending
That's where
and
I'm.
seemed
That's like
brilliant
where I'm
in the
making my like
stories I
first
would make
visit.
up for my toys.
Bro,
A
there's
few
like
years
2
later,
white
my
people
father
staring at me
received
right
a
now.
phone call at 3 a.m.
But
It
yeah,
was my babysitter
so
claiming that
I don't
women
know.
on CNN are trying to kill me. They are trying to kill me with the anthrax.
That's the only
My
friend
dad called the cops.
that I can
Apparently,
genuinely
they
say I
found
miss
her on
too.
the ground
Yeah.
in her house, in an adult's diaper,
I don't know.
topless,
Actually
holding a
makes me
phone
cry.
book and crying for her mommy. Yet it turns out the reason she was so awesome at
I don't know.
pretending was because she was not pretending.
This is really
She
sad,
was
man.
completely bat crap crazy.
Guess you don't know
Sounds
about
like
anything.
upshot unmedicated schizophrenia.
That and like I
I once
genuinely
came
miss my
home to
friend.
my twin sister, gleefully tying up Patty, awesome babysitter dude. He was on the phone with his
I
girlfriend
genuinely
and said
kind
that
of
it
makes
would
me
keep
cry.
my sister occupied. So what was the harm?
Oh.
The harm
Thank you
being
for the
that
follow,
this
Game
one
Master
twin,
TZ.
the other one
I really
is
appreciate it.
going to
Oh
come
shit,
back
I'm
to
talking
the
about
circus,
depressing
where
stuff when
they'll
you're
pay
speaking
for
like
the
that.
rest
That was
of
fun.
the clothesline
Literally, the
match.
fucking stream says,
He
"Tell me your
was so
secrets." So
wrapped up that he could hardly move.
But yeah,
Then he got off the
I don't
phone
know.
and asked us to untie
I don't know
him.
what I'm gonna do though.
Now why would we
I
do
miss
that?
them.
He got a little mad
They're dry
and finally
texture.
gave us the ultimatum: untie him now. Or
I
he
know
would
their
call
birthday's
my
coming up.
parents from the phone we foolishly tied to his hand in our 8-year-old glee.
Wait.
He would give us to the count of 3.
Wait a
and then
minute.
They were getting a
what?
call. After
March
about
already
5
passed.
minutes of
March is
haggling with
April.
us,
March
he
is
finally started
March
the
is
countdown. Comma 1,
Aries
2,
season, right?
and that's when my parents
Yeah,
went
March
in
is
at that
Aries season.
very
Never mind, her
minute.
birthday already passed. I
I am
think.
a 30-year-old
I think
guy,
March is Aries
but when
season.
I
Yeah,
was
her
in
birthday already
middle high
passed.
school, I did a lot of babysitting and had a few regulars. This is the last time I
But yeah, I don't know.
babysat for one
That's
of
whatever.
them. I was very, very, very
I'm probably
sick,
gonna cry about it
but
later.
they called and asked me to babysit. I advised them
I
I
get
was
over
sick
it.
but would do it if they really
I
needed
figured
me
something
to.
out.
They said they did, so I went over. They had
But
3
yeah, how you
daughters,
been?
and the middle one was
I've
also
been alright.
sick. So I went through the
That's
normal
good.
routines
Good.
and got them to bed.
I just,
If the middle
I haven't
one
really been
wouldn't
streaming
stay
because, like,
on,
I don't
so
know.
I said she could watch
I feel kind of
the TV,
discouraged.
as I wasn't up for anything else.
But I
Like,
stream
Flicked through
when
the
I
cable
feel
channels
like.
and found a kid-friendly movie and laid down on the couch. Well, due to my illness, I promptly fell asleep.
I
I
feel
was
you.
in my
I feel
sleep.
you.
The 5-year-old crawled up on me and
Yeah,
fell
I'm
asleep
sick of
on
these
top of
niggas
me.
using fucking
And then we
potions.
told
You're a
the parents
PC. You're not
came
supposed to be
home.
using
And in
potion.
the meantime, the movie changed
This is
from a
always new.
kid-friendly one to a very adult one.
They ain't do
The
shit.
parents came home
The
to
gym
the
leaders
couch
in
with
the
a
normal games
5-year-old
use
on top of me. With
No,
the
like
scene in a movie playing on
in
their big
Colosseum, they
screen.
they
They
rarely
didn't
ever use
really listen
potion.
to my explanations. They drove me home. This was before I could drive.
I don't know
Never
who
called
busy.
me again. I felt
You don't know.
Usually
and
be.
they were a great family to babysit for. Their daughters liked me and were easy to handle. And their
Usually
house was
I
a
ditch.
nice place
I
to
don't
chill
ditch
after
people.
the
I've
kids
never
went to
really
sleep. Maybe they
ditched them.
misunderstood you when you said you were really, really sick.
I just.
Built a 4 feet tall house of
I don't
cards
know.
around my sleeping
I don't know.
1-year-old. That's when I
I
realized we
don't
had
know.
way more playing cards than any human should ever own. I know I'm kind of late.
My God, what's up with these
But
damn
sometimes
critical
I
hits?
remember
Oh my
that
God.
she had left me with a friend on New Year's Eve to go out, but she had paid him in H and told him
I don't know.
not to do it while he was watching me. Obviously that didn't happen,
I
and he took all of it and started
really
to
miss
nod off
my
and over.
nigga.
I was in 7th grade and had my
I
best friend over, and I
really
knew all
miss
about
my
it. Long
nigga.
childhood. Another story
I missed
for
him too.
another day, and I knew he was
Really
probably going to
miss
die if
my.
I didn't do something.
Come on, white people. You just said you just change that into a W.
What?
Miss my
What'd
way.
you just say?
You've never heard that song?
No. Oh, okay.
So the song goes like, I
Wigga.
miss my nigga. Yeah, and then he was like, come on, white people. You just thinking to change that into a W.
Why don't they just change it to a W? The fuck?
Exactly. So it makes it wiggle.
Exactly. So why can't they say okay? Now that's the solution to our
He was
problem.
telling white people not to say N-word and just say wiggle.
Yeah, they should just
I
say
went the
wiggle
wrong way.
then.
That he was suffering an allergic reaction.
That's
Yeah.
fix everything.
And I needed to get him help and I would be right back.
That
We
fixes
stepped out
everything
into the
then.
blustering cold and
Or it
started
should.
He was still completely out of it and was falling all over the place. I lived in a sunny suburban area
I don't
and
know.
it was an arduous journey to the closest place I go with
I do really miss my wiggle.
As it turns out, grocery stores don't have readily
I miss hanging out with my wiggle.
but he was coming to a little bit, so I started
that's what it was.
Tears streaming down my face and chapping my cheeks.
I'm in my thoughts.
Finally we got
But yeah,
to
that's,
the house and I
don't know, that's how I
confident
feel.
he wouldn't
You're in your
notice.
feels.
So I sat him down in a
I am in
chair
my
in the
feels.
kitchen and
I'm in my
set
feels
off
24.
for him and
If I
just
like
watched him to make
genuinely,
sure he survived. My friend had fallen asleep
like
and it was
genuinely,
well past 2 in the morning.
They didn't do
and
shit.
we were not returning for
I'm always
another
in my
hour or
feels.
so. Without
guess.
boring into another story,
You're either
he still thanks
you're
me
either
to this
a
day.
future
I'm in my
or you're a
20s
weekend,
for saving his
and in
life.
between is a Drake.
Unfortunately, he's serving a 5-year sentence.
And somewhere in
for
between
a
there's the
shooting
XX
related to his
concoction, but that's like
Man,
another story.
it really felt nice
Then
to
why try to
get
get
yeah.
deep with me
I've
for?
never really talked about my crappy
Huh?
childhood.
Why try to get deep with me
Subsequently
for?
made who I am. The best part is no one will see
Not even
this
deep,
because
that's
it's
the
such
fact.
a long,
You're either
front-page
you're either a
post and
weekend,
I'll be way at the bottom.
a future,
Whoa.
or a Drake.
You had your crap together for a 7th grader. Well done.
Future,
Giving the
is
baby
misogynistic.
whiskey. Definitely.
He's misogyny
My dad
god.
used to
Alright.
rub a tiny bit on my
Then
dick
there's
when I was a baby
then
and
there's the
baby.
weekend.
He said it worked.
You know, who's Mr.
Of course it
in his
wasn't
feelings all the
because
time,
any
right?
problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Drake, you know,
Folded laundry.
who's always in his feelings.
I am not a parent,
Sometimes.
but I was babysitting
He's
a
also
young
like
boy
the
down
other
the
line.
street from me that
And
my
those two.
family was good friends with
And
when I
then
was
there's XX
13.
Concoction,
The boy is autistic,
which is
but
like in
not
between
severe,
Future and
so
Drake.
I knew what I was
I think.
getting into when I said
Or he replaced Drake. I don't know. I'm tired of old.
Who replaced Drake? Drake is not replaceable. Drake is a legend.
The kid ran circles around me all night.
But there's like so many white people
I tried to put him in bed,
uncomfortable.
hide anywhere he could find.
I've never been so
And most of
uncomfortable.
all,
Actually, no. It's
Why
not
are you
because they're white.
uncomfortable for what?
It's not because they're white, it's because they're people.
He directed his tornado of autistic terror into the
Be
kitchen,
an introvert, be like.
which I knew held Mommy's secret chocolate stash.
This is the longest I've spent outside my house
As he was
in the
reaching
past
for
4
the
weeks.
candy,
Because we're
I shut the door
quarantined?
behind him. Well,
Even before quarantine, I was still in my house.
And your feels.
The kid went apeshit, screaming.
He was in 2
I cried
secluded
like
places at
I used to
the same
cry
time.
Before
so
I
much.
even had a chance to open the door.
But I don't cry with the same person. I think I got over that person.
Home to me releasing their child from a closet.
There's always one person I can get over.
I was never hired.
Who's your best
And I know
friend?
why.
You know what?
Yeah.
Frick those parents.
You know how much
They
shit
should
I
have
did with
given
that girl?
tactics to
Then
use.
why won't you be friends with her again?
They know their child and how his
I don't know.
condition affects
Then
him.
just do
I
it.
don't know.
They should have prepared you better.
You know how hard it is being friends with somebody you broke ties with? I didn't break ties. but I did say-
Then tie a
I
new
never told you what
tie.
actually went down, did I?
Tie a new tie.
I take effort from both sides.
Does she want to do it?
I don't know. I remember our fears before we dated was that we wouldn't be friends after we dated. So I kind of have to like look into that shit.
Are you willing to set the romantic feelings aside?
I have like no romantic feelings for her anymore.
Exactly. So y'all can be friends now.
Did not want to be rude by borrowing a
The whole
I'm not
exes
really
can't be
romantic
friends
feelings
thing.
for anybody.
The whole exes can't be friends thing, in my opinion, is only if y'all still have romantic feelings for each other.
I don't have feelings for nobody.
Not even that one person.
I don't have feelings to the degree that they have.
But would you try again though? If they got their shit together?
The guy?
Yeah.
I got too much.
Maybe he's too much.
That's like a genuine headache. Like, if I'm talking to you, right? Like, if I'm talking to you, and I don't know, it's you have to like talk to them to understand like the significance of how much trouble I go through on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I ruined some really good moods I had just talking to them. Like, oh yeah, I think we're fighting right now.
You and a boy?
Just to make the noise
Yeah,
stop.
I think we're fighting.
You think?
I think.
How do you think you're fighting
Yeah, no,
someone?
actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm 100% correct. We are fighting. I think. Because yesterday, right, they were busy and they were doing shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I respect them now.
Every time he tried to
I might not
escape
be able
and
to talk
play, it was a
later.
few minutes of yelling
Anyway,
for
you
him
know?
to realize I
Mhm.
wasn't gonna budge. So his
Alright,
parents came
they're like 2
home
hours
to us
behind me,
standing
so.
across the playroom from each
Um,
other, him
they got like till
hollering
5
like
o'clock.
he couldn't breath without
And
screaming,
they still weren't
and
back.
just dead
5 o'clock
staring
my
him
time.
with the kitchen timer in hand.
Like, it became
The only
non-time
time
and they
that
called me.
family ever tipped
I
me
was like
for the
really,
hitting,
I was like really drained.
or the biting. Not
I was
the threats
dehydrated
or
as fuck.
blocks or baseballs thrown at my head.
I'm probably gonna die
Just
once
for
I.
the one time they caught me
I've been
down.
drinking.
I
I've been
stopped
drinking more than a
babysitting
gallon
for
of
them
water.
after that.
For
As
weeks.
you know your kids are awful, you need to sweeten the deal. Cause I don't think a
hot
lot of
as
the
fuck
other
out here.
neighborhood girls
And-
will sit for them anymore, either.
You said it's hot.
And, like,
a kid like that
so I didn't
once.
answer.
Two boys,
I didn't answer.
both
I was like,
just
I'm gonna be.
awful. My
Anyway.
sister had babysat
I
for
was
them
already
before
saying I was
and
gonna be
she's
good.
very shy.
Cause you were
and
busy,
wouldn't
I
get them in
accepted that.
trouble.
After I was gonna
I'm
be busy
different.
later, right?
So
Mhm.
bedtime
And
comes
then-
around and the kid starts
told him I had to
screaming
do
and
shit.
yelling and won't go to
And
bed.
he was like,
He happens to be sitting
like,
on
who are
the
you getting your
blanket,
haircut
so
by?
I just
You know what?
dragged
I don't
him
have
in
to
the
answer that.
blankets down the
It's
hall
simple.
into
I don't
his
want to
room
answer.
and shut the door.
So, I just go back
Not
to being
apparent,
busy.
but one time while we
And
were in France, I
he
was
calls again.
probably
I'm still
9-ish.
busy.
My sisters were like
Big ass
6
bug.
and 3. My parents went out
And
together
I'm
and left
still
to see the
busy,
babysitter
or, like,
they had found through a
He
local
doesn't know if I'm
agency.
busy or
I
not, but I
was
already
old
said I was
enough
going
to
to be busy.
handle myself,
So I'm busy,
but
right?
they figured
Mhm.
being in a
Then
foreign
it
country
gets to
and
like
having
2
such
o'clock
a
in the
young
morning.
child, they should have
My
someone
time.
there anyways.
Because,
I
like,
don't remember
it was going on
anything
pretty
about
late.
that experience.
You know, they're 2 hours
From
behind or
what my
something.
parents tell
Oh,
me, they
anyway,
came
so
home to
I'm getting my
find the
haircut from my
babysitter
dad, right?
upstairs in one of the
I come
bedrooms
back,
on her
you know,
phone. My youngest sister on the
the
floor
proper
bleeding
response, I'm
because
like,
she had
hey,
waddled into a
before you blow your,
table
oh, because they
and
felt
hit
some type of
out
way.
her head. And the
I think they
other
felt
two
some
of
type
us
of way.
hiding in the
They
bathroom.
typed it. I was like, hey,
Well,
for you to,
my
like, blow your
parents, it would
load.
be my babysitter
What the
was admitted
fuck?
to
I mean,
throwing up while pretty
I was like,
drunk.
let me
She
explain.
was a good friend of
Let
the
me
family,
explain.
and I was probably 8 at
Let
the
me at
time.
least explain what
I had
happened
been
today.
mixing rum and
Yeah.
cokes for her all
Mhm.
night. Pretty
Responsible
much
thing to do.
half and half. She asked me why
And-
it tasted funny since it was a bit strong.
Alright, like, they
and I said
know
it
I
was
don't,
a
like,
knockoff
genuinely,
that
like,
my
talk
mum
at night.
buys.
I don't talk around my
My
parents.
parents thought
The only
it
people I
was
talk to
hilarious since
around
I
my
had
parents
taken
are
this
you
opportunity to watch
and
horror
Jacob.
films. I wish more 8-year-olds could
'Cause,
make
like,
a good stiff drink.
We don't really talk about anything.
Had a 14-year-old
Of,
neighbor
like,
girl to watch
significance?
my then 3-year-old daughter for
I
3
guess.
hours.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Came home,
so
my daughter
it was like 2
alone
o'clock
on
in the
kitchen
morning,
floor.
and people were going to
More
sleep.
about that in a sec.
And
So I'm like, where the heck is the babysitter?
I was like, hey, let
called
me
her mom, and
explain,
she said,
right?
oh. I yelled for her
And
to come home because
then I
it
went to
was
go take a
getting
shit.
dark. And she went,
Like,
turns out she never
actually
told
went to
her
go
mom
shit.
she was babysitting.
Like,
And how?
I don't know, my
daughter
stomach was
was
hurting.
fine.
No.
She was just
Okay, I went to go
sitting
take
on
a
the floor
shower.
with a big pan.
But I
In
like,
the pan she
I
had
like to take a
cracked
shit before I
48
take a
eggs.
shower. So I
I
was like
was
sitting on the
mixing
toilet
them
for like
in
a few
the
minutes.
bowl.
You know?
It was close to
Mhm.
his
Make sure,
turn,
like,
but
I don't have
wasn't
the shit.
for the kids
But then
of
I
the
took a,
family to
I sat there,
cry.
nothing came out.
Anyhow,
I went to go take a
moral
shower.
of the story,
Halfway
be
through my
careful
shower,
of young
I
teen
took shit.
babysitters and learn to love omelets.
I hate that shit. But yeah,
My
and then like, I come back to my like Discord. Like, I thought you were gonna call right now. I was like, no, I told him before I took the shower. I was like, yeah, I'm taking a shit. And like, then that shit happened. And then I came back. He was like,
just grab it and go. She goes
I could pull out the messages. Now that I think about it.
I decided
Better.
that it would be funny
Bro,
to
it's hot
slowly
as
shut
shit.
the fridge door and make it
How
into a little
hot is it in
evacuation.
Texas? Because it's been like in the 40s in fucking Maryland.
It wouldn't be able to
Texas?
shut all the way
Nigga,
without
I'm
them
sweaty.
anyway. Her parents walk in through the side door, the faces directly in front of the
Long.
fridge. Not sure when
Not
was
that
going
far.
through their mind
I've done
when
like a
they
full
saw
circle.
the babysitter shutting
I've
their
been
toddler,
fucking in
who was
bushes.
hysterically
I've been like
giggling
walking in
to
like
the fridge. But they
eight,
had a
like-
laugh. Paid me.
Alright,
And I
so
still
here's what
babysit
happened.
them to this day, so it couldn't have affected
So I was like,
my
can you give me
reputation
time to
that
tell you
much.
what happened today before you jump the gun?
A friend's
They're like,
dad
I know,
lost
I'm
his
trying. I'm
virginity
just
to
really
his
hurt.
babysitter
There's
after
been so much
convincing
on my
him that
mind,
his
and it's been
friend
hurt.
was
It's
pregnant.
been hard.
He was 11,
I've been trying
and
to
she was
fix it,
18.
so please know that
My
it's
mom
other
hired
things
a
in my life
babysitter
that I
for
do,
my
right?
sister
Mhm.
once. I
So that's
thought
what he
she was
says to me
nice.
saying,
One day
don't
she
jump the
wasn't
gun.
there anymore. My mother
Alright.
told me she'd
And
been
then
fired.
I said,
WW.
I'm
That's
not
what
completely
she
free,
was
but I can
awesome.
give you some of my
My mother
responses
explained
if
she
that's
had
what you
been
need.
taking my sister to
You
her
know,
house during the day,
sometimes I
then
like,
bringing her
I don't know if I ever done to you, but like we'll be on the phone, and I won't be able to say certain things, but I would just text it to you, you know?
Oh yeah, but you text me some weird shit.
kind of like even like responses to things you say. Sometimes how I texted you. But yeah, that's what I was talking about. And he was like, actually, never mind. I understand now. I'll just like, he was like, actually, never mind. I understand now. I'll just leave. It's not that serious to you enough. So I'm leaving. I think there's something you aren't telling me. Well, if you didn't want to talk to me that badly, so I've been waiting this whole time for you to call, I would gladly just leave. I'm tired of asking you to communicate with me simply. I'm trying so hard to be patient, and it's beyond me now.
Subscribe and you will be safe from all danger for the
And
next 24 hours.
I said,
If you are new
I
to
told
the
him,
channel, you can
I literally said what I was doing. I literally said I was gonna be busy that day. And then he said, if you're that okay, oh wait. And I was like, you know what? I told you what I was doing today. But I hope the next person makes you happy. Or yeah.
Single men of Reddit.
I'm kind of getting tired of like them jumping the gun on how like shit or whatever. So I was like, I hope the next person makes you happy. They do the exact same thing. Anyways, so they're like, if you're that okay with me leaving, this only tells me much more. Look, there was so much I wanted to talk to you about. It seems I would never happen. It would never happen now. Like you really want me gone. So I will give you what you want. I will finally give you what you really want inside. I wish I meant more to you. Sorry that I gave too much. Hope they give you what you want. Don't forget to keep smiling. And then I texted something. Yeah, I have that. Like they're probably sleeping. But yeah.
So when was the last time you talked?
Basically, yesterday, I like 4 a.m. my time. It's like 2 a.m. their time.
Then I had a good time.
But yeah,
let's do this again.
They're
I'm good. I've got enough negativity and mixed
signals coming
from my own brain.
I'm just shit.
That coming from the outside.
Yeah, but like you was busy.
I literally said I would be busy.
Exactly.
And I never talk at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning my time. Like regardless. And I didn't say I wouldn't talk to you. I said I'm not completely free, which is mean like I can't freely talk as I like to, you know. You know how I'm talking right now. You know, like when I'm home alone, you know how I talk like this, and then, like you know how when my parents are home or some shit, so like I change like the energy in my voice, you know.
Yeah.
That's basically, and basically. Every time we have a problem, right? Every time. I don't want to call. I end up calling. Every time we have a problem, it goes their way. To call. And we talk about it through call. And I don't like it.
What the fuck?
Bro, there was a flying.
What happened?
Alright, there was like 3 of them, right? They're fucking fast.
We chatted a bit. She seemed cool enough. And we decided to meet up for a burger at a place I knew downtown.
But yeah.
Seemed like a kind of low-key thing.
Every time he's
get
mad.
to the bar a few minutes early
and
order a beer. Then finish it. Then, 45 minutes late, she rolls in. One okay.
I'll hear your problems out.
We all have jobs and have dealt with traffic and whatever. It happens.
There's been times I've left my house
just a shrug and that's how it goes sometimes. She sat down. We began chit-chatting. She asked about my work. I assumed that.
I remember one time I like walked my apartment.
But no, it was trying to feel out how much money I made. 3.
I was like 16,
when
like
she asked my job title, and I told her,
just talking
she immediately suggested that we leave this casual place to hit up a wine bar down the block. Okay.
I'm like, some things are your problem. I feel as though the things that you don't understand, I'm like explain. Whatever. I told him one time, he had a problem. I was like, this is a you problem because it's a misunderstanding you had. It's something you took out of context that was perfectly put into context. And then like,
I had already ordered a
like
drink from the bar for
he was
myself
mad about it.
and got the impression that this was not wine to share. 5. She kept talking
about
he
called me.
And how
okay, I'm gonna give you this. Right?
Her work was fun to hang out with. Like the only conversation
they were at work,
she had was bashing work
they were at work.
Workers. With a few mildly racist undertones.
No, they weren't at work. They were on the day off. Alright, and they wanted to talk to me.
Friends to meet up that evening. I was invited.
So they were at work. And they were coming home from work. They wanted to talk to me.
I assume that for all their fun, I discreetly went
I was playing League of Legends.
Paid for my drink, and just left.
Playing League of Legends.
Straight up knocked out of there. Without so much
when they came home,
from my messages, when
they were being all sexual in the chat shit, right? They were being sexual and stuff, right?
For no
and so
reason.
usually when someone's like being like really sexual in the chat, I'm like, wait a minute, like wait a second, you know?
Wait, so wait. So your person was being sexual in the chat to other people or like to you?
No. It was just personal. Personal chat. There's more. There's like I can tell you about other shit. This about this one. They're being sexual and shit, right? I was like, wait a second. This is IMF. This is all IMF. I was like, wait a second. Right, chill. Then I responded. I did give some dry response. And like, and then like hours later, right, after I finished my league match, they call me, right? And like they call me, and they're like, what have you been doing? I'm like, what? I think they said, why did you call me? But I heard like, why didn't you answer my call? I was like, because like, like when like you're doing shit on your phone, and like you slide the text message down, but like the send button's not appearing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah, the send button was, I was like, the send button's not appearing. I got so angry. Got angry. Like I said, the send button wasn't working. That's why I didn't answer the call. But what they actually said was, why didn't you answer my call? Okay, you know what? And then I literally said that I didn't answer you because my.
Oh yeah, wonder how that.
But that's not what they heard.
Frick this crap, I'm out. Wonder how that happened. When you don't put any points in it.
They get angry.